The
There
battery.
she is. My watch is behind.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's why you're always on time.
I see.
If your watch is behind, you're always on time.
That's right. Are you ready? I had 5:59, being told I'm wrong. Ready? Okay, it is 6:08, and we're calling this meeting to order. We do have a quorum present. We have Adam Soto doing the invocation and Ms. Bass doing the Pledge of Allegiance.
Would you pray with me? Gracious God, we thank you for life. We thank you for district and community, Father God, and that's what we ask for tonight, for the guidance of this board towards our district, towards this community and everything that we do. It'll be to honor you and our students with the help of our staff. We just ask that you continue to help us, keep us safe, protection over each one of us. We ask all this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Would you stand with me for the pledge? I pledge allegiance now for the Texas pledge.
Dr. Sanchez.
All right, we have a packed house and a packed agenda. We do have one citizen comment. We have Mr. Gutierrez, and so you can go ahead and come forward at this time, and the board president will read our policy regarding the public participation aspect of our board meeting.
The board encourages comments about the district from members of the public. Anyone who has signed up to speak in advance of the meeting in accordance with the board procedures may do so at this time. The board asks that each participant comments pertain to the district business and be no longer than 3 minutes. Remember that the board may not discuss or act upon any issues that are not posted on our agenda. If an issue mentioned is listed on tonight's agenda, the board will defer discussion of this issue until the appropriate time during the meeting. In addition, the board has adopted policies to provide prompt and equitable resolutions of complaints and concerns for employees, students, or their parents and the general public. Copies of our district policies and procedures on public comment and filing complaints are available at the Education Center at 2417 Yonkers, Plainview, Texas 79072.
All right, sir.
Thank you, President De La Garza, Board Superintendent. To be able to speak with you today on a business item V3, consideration and approval of 2 amendments to Plainview ISD's COVID-19 response. I stand in front of you representing the online virtual students and raising their voice on the concern of the item of the virtual learners not eligible to be afforded the opportunity to be exempt from the end of the term exam for high school. But first, I want to thank the board, the school board, admin, teachers, custodians, staff, for all the preventive measures that have been taken to keep all our children safe and all the risks they undertake daily. Plus, I want to thank the board for authorization of continuing the online learning, and especially the teachers that have committed to additional teaching the virtual learners. Got a few in the back of the room right now. Teaching my son. Thank you, board, for authorization of stipends to these teachers for taking on online students. I'm an educator myself. I'm an adjunct professor for Wayland, teaching on campus and online. And I understand the pressure these teachers are having to sustain. As we know, this pandemic is serious, and parents like myself are greatly appreciative for the choice given to us to keep our children online for the rest of the school year, with the hopes of returning in the fall with vaccinations and other mitigation techniques. Personally, I have lost friends. I have lost my uncle to COVID in November, and I've seen too many coworkers suffer with complications. The remaining virtual learners have persevered through, sitting behind a computer for hours on end, sometimes until midnight, trying to complete their homework. This virtual learning environment is tough, as identified in November, requiring children to return to campus that were not meeting all the requirements. The few that are left online continue to educate themselves without the opportunity to have the teacher readily available as on-campus students. As we know, this exemption status from taking the semester test is earned through hard work and recognize students' efforts they have endured through the term. The proposal in front of you tonight is removing the incentive to be recognized for the efforts of online learners is having to deal with. It has been stated how difficult the online learning environment for students is. But like many other schools around the country, PISD has found a way to continue online learning. It is working, and students are gaining knowledge of the subject matter. Us as parents are being substitute teachers with the help of providing the content of teachers through the Google Classroom. They provide it for us, we supplement. Parents have resourced electronic equipment, software, and devices to provide a semblance of a classroom. It is tough, but we endure this hardship due to the underlying health conditions that will put us at a higher risk. Of course, we all want our children to return to campus and have hopes to do this in the fall. Just at this moment, we have a raging fire of pandemic going on. Online students' exams are timed and proctored. For example, physics online, my student had a 30-minute requirement to finish his exam, but he needed clarification on some questions. He was unable to finish and missed 3 questions. He did not have the ability to talk to the teacher at the moment to clarify the question to fully complete the exam. Last year, he as a freshman had a test in algebra. During the class, he was able to finish the exam. He was unable to finish the exam, and the teacher allowed students to finish the exam during TCP. This afforded him additional time to finish and recheck his answers. During the online fall semester, he has had a proctor exam for his courses. Mr. Fikes had provided a lockdown browser and monitored him through the camera through the entire time exam. He completed the certification exam online with his help to monitor him to complete that exam on 3 different occasions. Time progressing through to achieve the Microsoft Specialist Master. As a Plainview ISD parent, this is why I stay in Plainview to our amazing teachers like Mr. Fikes that have went above and beyond, taking the time out of his lunch to help my student achieve this. What is being requested is to amend this item to allow online learners to be afforded the opportunity to be recognized for the hard work they have put forth and be exempt if they meet the criteria. If this is not acceptable, then strike the comprehensive exam and only require the second semester content. Due to the fact that schedules were adjusted and not all students potentially have the same teacher as the first semester, with the potential of continuity disruption. Thank you, and God bless.
If it is okay with the board, I'd like to go ahead and request the 3rd item on the agenda be moved forward, so as the item is the same item that Mr. Gutierrez addressed, and would allow the board, without interruption of the multiple presentations that we have, to be able to weigh citizen comment on an agenda item, if that's okay. All right. With that, if item 3 is consideration and approval of 2 amendments to Plainview ISD's COVID-19 response, I'll separate the 2. The first is requirement for all online students to take all final semester examinations in person at Plainview High School regardless of existing exemption criteria or campus practices, for the intent for teachers to evaluate student learning beyond online work submission. I'm bringing this item forward on behalf of Mr. Reagan and his instructional faculty at PHS. I do have information on the item. However, I think it'd be more appropriate for Mr. Reagan and his instructional faculty to be able to address the request in detail that I would not feel as well equipped to address at the level of detail that they would. So, Mr. Reagan.
Over the last semester and the last few weeks since we came back for Christmas, I've had an opportunity to talk to a lot of our instructional staff about what they're seeing in the classroom, their observations, and their feelings about where we are with online learning and how it affects our students. And tonight I have 5 teachers that have asked to come up here and just visit with you about their observations.
Hello, my name is Elise Newland, and I teach Algebra 2 at the high school. First off, I want to say thank you so much for allowing us to come speak to y'all, and I appreciate all that you're doing, especially during this season of our lives. I would like to take a minute to express my concerns on how we have some big gaps in knowledge for our online students when they come back face-to-face. Online learners have many resources. They have apps, they can use Google, they can search. They have online calculators that will produce every single answer you can think of just by typing in a simple equation. They have parents that help them. They have notes that they have taken. They have previous problems that they have worked on and can refer to, and other resources to help them get to correct answers. While all these resources are great when used correctly, I think it's hurting our online learners. I feel that when they have access to all these resources on every assignment, even our tests and our quizzes that face-to-face don't get, I feel like they're really not made to learn the material, actually like memorizing the steps, knowing the skills, knowing the formulas, and especially they're not really developing problem-solving skills. Here's just one example that I have had. I had a student return from online learning during the last week of last semester. This student maintained a high grade the entire time they were online, and when they came back, I did a review assignment that day. This student has already done this same topic on 3 other assignments prior and aced all of them. And when I say aced, 2 100s and a high 90. On this review assignment, this student only got 1 out of 15 correct. This was a very easy assignment for this student, and my next lowest score was 9 out of 15. So going from a 1 out of 15 to a 9 out of 15, that's a huge gap for an online learner to come back face-to-face. This concerns me very much, and this is also an accelerated student. So we're talking about the top students of our school. I asked the student why this happened, and they admitted that they've never had to study, they've never had to memorize or actually learn the steps or the rules, because they would use their notes the whole time, the review the whole time, and then the ones that they didn't know, they would just search it and Google it, or use the Math Photo app, where you just take a picture of it and the answer pops right up, and that would get them the right answer. Now I'm having to fill in those gaps that that student has to get them back on track every single day. I feel grades that online students are making do not reflect what they truly know and what they're truly capable of. This is just one example. I have many others. And I just feel like these major gaps are going to be coming back to us once they get to face-to-face. If I was an online student, I'd be using these resources as well because they would be available to me. But it's also not fair to my face-to-face students that don't have access to checking their answers before they submit their test, before they submit their quiz. And so I just feel like that's a whole nother topic that I think Ms. Harrell will get to. But I just wanted to express my concern for these online students. I feel like gaps are being made, and we're going to see them next year. If you have any questions, I would be happy to try to answer them, but thank you so much for your time.
Good evening. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry. Good evening. My name is Rebecca Owens. I teach Algebra 1 and 2 at Plainview High School. I also teach the ELL students, and I am a member of the LPAC committee. I wanted to take some time today to talk to you about the Algebra 1 side and things that I've been noticing on specifically the data end and things that make me very deeply concerned as we get closer and closer to STAR testing time. So I took the liberty of preparing a handout for you. It looks like this. I don't know if you'll have that, but hopefully.
Yes, ma'am, they all do.
Okay. If you'll turn to the very last page, page 9. What this is a, it's the printout of the first semester exam for Algebra 1. I know it says regular at the top, but it is for all of our Algebra 1 students at Plainview High School. So this does not include Coronado or Estacado Middle School, but it does include Plainview High School. There's a color key down there that I would like for you to notice. I color-coded yellow are the online learners that came back during the first 6 weeks. Green are the online learners that came back second 6 weeks. Orange, which kind of looks more gold on yours, is the third 6 weeks. These are the students that came back when the school board required them to return in Thanksgiving. Blue are the students that came back at the start of second semester, and red are the students who still have not, who are still online. So when I was breaking down this data, I noticed we had 46 online students in Algebra 1. Out of those 46, 23, which is half of them, did not approach. Let me repeat that. 23 students online did not approach grade level on this test. Comparatively, in person, 35 students did not approach. Out of 290, that turns into 14% of our students did not approach on this test. So 50% to 14%, that's pretty alarming. And then I also have, so 23, of course, 50% of the online students did approach. Out of those 50%, 28% approached, got meets, and 8 students, which is 17%, reached mastery. As you notice, I'm sure the people that came back the first 6 weeks, the yellow students, we were generally able to fill in those gaps, and they tended to score higher on the semester final than the others. Unfortunately, you can kind of tell our green and orange O's, colored ones, the students that came back second or third 6 weeks, we were unable to fill those gaps in as much as we would prefer as teachers. The students that are in red are still online, and we cannot verify their actual test scores. When a student's online, as Elise Newland said, I don't know what they know versus what their friend knows, or their parent knows, or their math app knows. So I have a student online right now, and she's doing very well, but I'm very deeply concerned because the first time that she will take a secure math test for me is the day of the Algebra 1 STAR test in May. Now, I don't know about you, but as a teacher, I don't want any first times to happen on the day of the STAR test. I want it to be same old drill and kill. So that scares me deeply. And then, of course, you'll notice that a student that in blue that came back second semester scored very, very high, which was interesting because we gave her a homework assignment that she had completed every week. We have weekly homework in Algebra 1. The same homework assignment that they had completed every week online, they were unable to complete in person. The student admitted that they didn't know what to do, which told me that they were probably using Mathway or some other math app, but they were not learning the material. So a little more deeper into the data, the yellow students, 2 out of 11 did not approach. 5 out of 7 of the green, the students that came back second 6 weeks, did not approach. Of the orange, the students that came back after Thanksgiving, 8 out of 15 did not approach. And the blue, the students that came back second semester that were able to have, that took the semester final online, they both approached, which was very good. However, our still online students, 7 out of 9 of those did not approach. So this data concerns me, especially because the first semester of Algebra 1, we hammer linear. Linear is 2 of our very major units, and it takes up almost 50% of the STAR test. So these students coming back have severe gaps in their Algebra 1 knowledge and on the Algebra 1 STAR test. If they do not know 50% of that test, there's no way they can get meets. We'll be lucky if we get them to approaches. So that's just about it. The only way that I can ensure that a testing environment is secure is if the test is proctored. So unless somebody is observing the student taking the online test, I don't know who's helping them or if somebody is. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Hello, I'm Brandy Cook. I teach freshman English. I also have EL students. And this year for freshman English, we've seen some gaps as well, as Rebecca and Elise have mentioned. Research shows that one bad year of instruction sets a student back 4 years. Many of our students cannot afford a debt like this. Of the 27 students that I started at the beginning of the semester, only 2 remain. During that time, a few of the students decided to return on their own, but the majority stayed online. Those that stayed online did not complete assignments and did not return until they were required to return. Shortly after they returned, we tested those students just like the other subjects has. We tested them in our CBAs, and the students that were online averaged anywhere from 12 to 15 points lower than our regular online students. And these are just students in my class. Not only are these test scores a problem, but also their ability to write. This year's freshmen will be the first year since the 7th grade that they've taken a writing portion of the START test. They wrote an expository essay as 7th grade, and they will write an expository essay again as freshmen. We had written many essays. We had done many essays together as a group. We had planned essays since August. When these students came back in November, I vividly remember this day because it was the day that your students are finally writing on their own, and you get to walk around and ask, and oh, you get it. And deep down as a teacher, though, it's really that day when you're like, oh my gosh, they got it. They got it. And you're so excited. But this was the day, and that was my plan. And the day that these students came back, I walked up to my first student, and in every class I had a student that was online, and I walked up to my first student and I handed him the prompt, and I said, here's the essay we're writing today. Go ahead and plan it. And he stared at me blank. And I walked around the room and helped my other students, and after a minute or two I walked back to him, and he said, I don't know what I'm doing. So I said, okay. So I handed him a picture of the brainstorm, and I said, here, fill in your brainstorm with the pieces that you need, and then we'll write the essay from that. And again, I walked around the room and I watched this student, and in every class, in every single class, not one of my online students knew how to do it. And it was very disheartening, and it was very frustrating because these lessons had been videoed and posted online. We had been available for questions. I had videoed the exact lesson that I taught my students in class, and they had the exact same lesson as the face-to-face students. And yet my online students didn't take that opportunity to learn it. And unfortunately, I had to step aside and leave all of the rest of my kids to write their essays while I retaught how to write an essay to a different group in every single class. And in every single class, I was unable to be there for the rest of my students. And there's been stories and stories, as they mentioned, like this, all semester long. These students took the benchmark last week, and some of them finished it today. And unfortunately, when we took the benchmark, I pulled the scores, and looking at the scores of the 23 students that tested, 19 of them from online scored the lowest possible thing you could score besides a 0. These students' essays were blindly graded, meaning their names were on the back and no teacher knew who it was. They were graded just by what they had written. And by STAR standards, they are not able to pass the STAR because they cannot write that essay. It's not necessarily writing an essay that gets me as a teacher, though, because English is the building block for everything that they will do from this point on. It's the basis for essays for English 2. It is SAT, ACT tests. It is scholarship applications. It is college applications. It's job applications. It's letters to an editor and the occasional Facebook post. You have to know how to write and how to reach your audience. And many of our students that are online were unable to do so. And it's not even necessarily with education. These students have lost the building blocks because they have not been around. They are not able to decipher a medical bill. They are not able to understand an insurance plan. They are not able to understand which form to fill out when filing their taxes, because they have lost these things that they needed that were building blocks that we started this year as freshmen. They're unable to decipher text. And these students, they need to be able to have that. And whether they want to go to college, want to go to the military, the skills that we are teaching right now, especially in freshman English, are the skills that they need to be successful in life. And unfortunately, this group of 23 students, 25, 27, because 2 of them are still online. This group of students has started so far behind where they need to be. And this group of students needs to have the ability, they need to be able to understand these things to make them successful in life. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening to my rambling, and y'all have a great night.
Good evening, all, and I am Adila Harrell. I teach physics at the high school. I also have the LEP students that are at the high school, and I teach physics to them. I have the AP class, and I have the accelerated class. What I'd like you to know in my situation, I'm just going to talk about my classes. There are 2 other teachers that teach physics, so this is just my experience. So I started out with about 15 students that were online. There were about 4 of them that were my LEP kids, and then I had several that were accelerated and several that were just my basic, regular, everyday student. So as we started this platform, and I know this was an opportunity given to them because we all were in a situation because of this pandemic, and we were afraid of what could happen when we got these groups of kiddos together. So what I was noticing on my kiddos that really concerned me was the way some of them just completely forgot that that was even there. They wouldn't sign on. They wouldn't join the class. They had trouble deciphering what we wanted them to do. Most of those students were asked to come back in November. And what happened in my class, just getting them back in, and I asked, because it was told on Google Classroom to all of the physics students, these are the supplies you have to have. You have to have that binder, and as you are printing off your material, you put it in that binder and you're organizing it. And every day we would tell them, this stuff now goes in the notes section, this stuff goes in the lab section, this stuff goes in your ACT section, because that's where we do the prep for ACT. And when they came back, not a single one of them had a binder. I asked, where is your stuff that you've been doing online? Mrs. Harrell, I did not do it. And I said, oh no, so we've got to start all over. So this is November, we've started this in August, and we've got this issue. So I gather things up and we start all over with these kiddos, and my other kiddos are in class with their binder, and they have everything organized because I have made them that way. I have told them this is how we do it, and you keep everything together, because if you don't, of course you're not going to know what's going on. So we get all that started, and then I got to thinking, wait a minute, when I look at all the stuff you teach in physics, it is building on English for labs, it is building on geometry for the math portion of it, it's building on algebra heavily. And so I think about, well, I've got 10th graders in here, I've got 11th graders in here, I've got seniors in here, and in March of the year before, there's a huge gap because we didn't come to school. And so then I had to go back, and when I taught vectors, I had to go back and teach geometry. So the kiddos that were in my class got that. The kiddos who were not, and they were online, and I pushed that information to them, thought they got that. When they came back, they couldn't pass those tests. They didn't have that background. And if you don't have that, it was a struggle for them to do the problems that we had in class. So this was just noticing that the gaps were huge in my classroom. And getting them caught up was a struggle. We still have a struggle. I gave out personally so many binders when these kiddos came back. I now only have 3 kids online, and they seem to be doing well, but I'm sure those 3 kiddos are the kids that have support in their families. They have a printer at home, they have a computer, they have family members that can help them. But I still don't know, are those gaps filled? Did they Google the answer Did they just have all their resources, all their reviews with them when they took the test? I don't know that. I don't know the answer to that. Now, the other thing that concerns me is I'm also on the Faculty Council for National Honor Society. And I was also National Honor Society sponsor for several years. So when I think about my own personal child, I mean, he's not here yet in the high school, but I know parents are going to think about this. When you think about the playing field, how do we level the playing field for a kid who's online versus the kid who's in the classroom, who doesn't have a phone when they take their test, who sits by themselves, who doesn't have a neighbor to talk to, who does all the studying by themselves and then comes and takes the test? How do you say that you can compare that kid's answers on their test to a kiddo that is online? That worries me. How is I, as a parent, say, okay, we're playing the GPA game and we want to be in the top 10% of this class because we want to get a scholarship to go to this university. Or we are playing that GPA game also because we need to be in the top 6% of the class because we want to go to UT. How do we justify that my kid who is in the classroom, doing the work, being proctored, and I'm comparing my kid who is in the classroom being proctored to a student that I don't know is being proctored at home? I don't know what the answers are to those. And I was wondering if that has been a concern that's ever been brought up to anybody as a board member. So I was just looking at from that standpoint, being part of National Honor Society and looking and seeing how hard those kiddos are working to maintain that GPA. So when they do go to college, it affects them later on in life. I thank you for listening to me. Appreciate y'all.
Good evening. My name is Mandy Steen, and I teach, well, let me see what I don't teach in English. I teach English 2, I teach English 3 AP, I teach English 4 AP. And you've heard about our LEP students filling gaps. You've heard about our National Honor Society and concern about GPA. I want to just talk to you about coming at it from the AP situation. Our district spends a great deal of money on AP tests, and we are very thankful for that because there are kids that would not have opportunities to take AP tests if you did not pay for it. And mine is also about online students. Now, currently, I don't have any. I had some last semester. Mine right now are just quarantine students. However, I noticed discrepancies as well when they came back to class between what they would turn in online versus what they could do in the classroom. And my biggest concern were multiple choice tests because I could have it open on my computer, but I might could Google a little answer on my phone. You know, when you do your timed writings in AP 3 and 4, you have 40 minutes to write your essays with the exception of one in AP 3, which y'all don't want to know about that. But it is all on the fly. You have to go based on what you have in front of you and hopefully with the knowledge that we build in class. I was getting initial 40-minute essays from online students that were extremely polished and well-written and didn't quite match what I had seen previously from students. So my concern is what we receive online with regards to assessments, does it adequately and accurately measure what students are learning? So other concerns that I just want to share with our accelerated English teachers, it's along the same lines of just that the accuracy of what we're getting from students, does it convey to us what they're learning? Or what they're, I don't want to say outsourcing, but maybe finding somewhere else. I think it's important for our kids to take assessments with us, especially like Rebecca mentioned, she doesn't want the first time that her student takes a STAR test to be on the STAR test date. I think kids need the interactions. I think they need to be present, so when they have that question, we can answer it for them. Because as much as we'd like to, built in a day, respond to their questions, life happens, stuff shows up, parents call. You know, we do our very best, but when they miss that interaction and learning that vocabulary, as much as I try to video myself right now, I'm shaking like a leaf. You know, kids don't get what they need, I feel, being online. And it's that interaction, and especially, and you can ask any kid, when you make that jump from English 2 accelerated to English 3 AP, it's fun. Ask parents, they love me. You know, but when we're there and we can answer those questions immediately, it's helpful. So I don't want to repeat what's already been said. That's why I'm glad Mr. Reagan said, you can go for last. I'll learn that. But we do appreciate you listening to us. We do appreciate what you do for our kids. We were ecstatic to get those kids back, you know, after Thanksgiving, before Thanksgiving. And the fact that you've been very supportive to us through this whole process. So thank y'all for your time.
I don't know if there are any questions that the board may have for Mr. Reagan or his faculty at this time.
Of course I have one. So currently, CBA's unit test, all of those things are taken, the online students are taking those at home currently? Okay. So the only thing that they may come back and take, like Ms. Owens talked about, is that STAR test? Okay.
If they had been required to take the semester final, that would have been the first semester.
Right. Right. I know as a former teacher myself, and the benchmarks that are taken in those practice, like Ms. Owens talked about, that is nerve-wracking as educators and even as a board to have those kids come back and take a test when they, and I will say that Mr. Gutierrez has reached out to me. I'm his board representative, and we've talked, and I understand his concerns, and I can see the GPA concerns. I've talked to some other parents about those concerns. It's going to be very, very difficult to ever even up the playing field when you've got a set of students working from home, a few, because we're down to a very small number, I believe 35, 32, is that right?
It's 34, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And compared to those students who are coming to school, and of course, all of you teachers covered all of those concerns. So I've been, you know, thinking about this all week, and as this has been an issue. For me, I have to go back to the commitment that we as a board made, and I see it on our back wall here. We will allocate resources to ensure each student attains their full learning potential, social, emotional, and civic development. And when I read that, I still solely believe, I believed it from the beginning, the best place for kids to be is in school with teachers, where they're getting that immediate feedback, where they're getting that social development. I think it's important for them to learn with friends and group education. Although I understand the concerns of families with at-risk family members at home, I think as a whole, our district with as many at-risk children as we have, it's best for their physical, mental, and social well-being to be at school. And if the teachers feel like they need that assessment, you know, I can see as an educator and a parent and a board member that we need to allow them to have that. That's my opinion.
Board, any questions?
Dr. Sanchez, you said there's 34 students. How's that broken down into, how many we have at the high school level? I guess that's
Sure.
what I'm trying to get at.
We have 34 at the high school, less than 20 at the middle school level. And at the elementary, it ranges from 1 student to 15 to 20 students, depending on the particular campus. In terms of breakdown by class, Mr. Reagan would have to talk about which numbers we have in freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior, and I don't know if you have that with you, Mr. Reagan? Not at that
No, that's
broken.
fine. I
Okay,
just wanted to know
yes, sir.
the full total. Thank
Dr. Sanchez, how many other districts in our area are still online?
Within 30 miles around us, we're it. In our competitive districts like Lubbock, Cooper terminated online in October, and there are others that have scaled it back to to about where we are, such as Friendship and some of the Amarillo schools. But in the immediate vicinity, we're one of the last remaining, if not the last remaining.
Is there anything that the state requires us to provide online?
Outside of a 2-week notice to end all online instruction, we're not required to offer online. What we are required to offer is in-person instruction to any student. And so this is an option that we've provided our community, but it's not a legal requirement any longer. It was only for the first month, and after that, it ceased to be something that was a necessity or even a prominent option.
So given a 2-week notice, then we can cease it, correct? My understanding?
Yes, sir, that's correct. We would give parents a 2-week notice, and then we could cease it.
Any other questions, board?
Is that, I'm sorry, is that 2-week notice, is that at any time? I mean, do we have to wait till like the end of the 6 weeks, or, I mean, it can be at the middle of the 6 weeks?
It could be at any point. Yes, ma'am, it could be at any point. We just have to give them 2 weeks' notice that we're requiring all students to come back. So we could give 2 weeks' notice. I just think it would be advisable 2 weeks prior to the end of the 4th-week term, just for grading purposes, and so on and so forth. And I did want to add one addendum. Friendship ISD does require students to come in on Saturday and take all exams proctored, all their online students. So as I mentioned, other districts have made modifications to their COVID-19 response in terms of examinations. And so they're one that does what the request is here in agenda item 3.1. But they're doing that with all their exams. This is one examination.
I was gonna, Ms. Owens, on this data that you provided for us, this is mostly freshman students then, so this would be kind of a true data of one whole class that took a semester exam in the fall? Okay, so that would be mostly freshmen, so it would be kind of, right, because freshmen take the semester exam regardless.
Yeah, do we have, like a plan in place, should we require these students to come back to take a test at the school?
Yes, ma'am. We originally were looking at this item in the fall, but because we didn't give parents enough advance notice and we didn't modify the COVID-19 plan at a board meeting, and we could have scheduled a board meeting and I could have brought the topic forward at that point in time. However, I felt it was fair to parents to give them advance notice. But at the time, Mr. Reagan did offer to any parent who had a concern. Our current infection rate is still below 1%. I mean, we're sitting at 0.68. That tends to be the average of where we are. And so we have really good safety precautions, but above and beyond our regular safety precautions, we have conference rooms at the front of the high school. And Mr. Reagan offered to any parent that would request that after the bell rings, there's a separate set of doors. The students could come in there. The conference room would be fully sanitized prior to the student coming in. There's a bathroom that's right there as well. And upon completion, the student could depart out those same doors and not run into any other person and have a very clean environment. So Mr. Reagan had offered that at that time, and that offer would still be made available if the board does approve the item.
Any other questions, board?
All right. With that, item 3.1, consideration and approval of the 2 amendments. I'd like to speak, I'm gonna, if y'all don't mind, I'll separate them out. So I'd like to On behalf of PHS Administration, Instructional Faculty, and the district, I'd like to make the recommendation for consideration and approval of the requirement for all online students to take the final semester examinations in person at Plainview High School, regardless of existing exemption criteria or campus practices, for the intent for teachers to evaluate student learning beyond online work submission.
Okay, Board, is there anyone that would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion for the approval for the requirement for all online students to take all final semester examinations in person at Plainview High School, regardless of existing exemption criteria or campus practices, for the intent for teachers to evaluate student learning beyond online work submission.
We have a motion by Mr. James. Do I hear a second?
I second the motion.
Is that, we have a second by Ms. Salazar. All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries. 7-0.
All right, we'll get the communication out on the change to that item. The second item, we can come back in the regular course of the meeting as part of 3, and we can go to, back to the presentations. Under presentations, we have, you want to take a 5-minute, do you want to go forward? Okay, all right. The next item we have are some recognitions, and we have recognitions of outstanding achievement. We have a couple of Texas State champions in Excel 2019 in PowerPoint, and so we also have boys All-State and District and girls All-State and District, and so I'll go ahead and turn that over to Dr. Richburg. All right.
Right behind you on the screen.
Our next academic goals. Thank you for having us. We're excited to announce some awards today. We have some exciting awards, Academic All-State and All-District Awards. We'll get started. The first one is Xavier Vasquez, honorable mention, Academic All-State. Next. Our next Academic All-State is Tyler Rodriguez, honorable mention. Next, Academic All-State, Brandon Fenelon, honorable mention. Good job, Brandon. And next up, we have Charles Gibson, who was second team Academic All-State, and unanimous first team defensive tackle. Good job, Charles. All right, now we'll introduce our All-District. We are missing one. Ethan Campos was honorable mention All-District. Next up, we have Justin Dominguez, honorable mention All-District running back. Austin Williams, honorable mention offensive tackle. Zaven Ponder, honorable mention all-district tackle. Next, second team receiver, Karomo Collins, also played running back. First team receiver, Austin Hawk. Austin also set the record for the most receptions in a season and most receptions in a game. And last one we have here is first team utility player Josiah Mountain. And lastly, we have Adrian Salazar, honorable mention, outside linebacker.
Daniela Guzman made second team all-district for volleyball. Adri Martin was honorable mention all-district. Sage Brunson was second team all-district and newcomer of the year for the Lone Star area team. Haley Curtis. She was first team all-district and second team for the Lone Star area team. Caroline Northcutt. She was all-state academic. Alexia Marcetto. She is academic all-state. Emily Segala. She is academic all-state and first team all-district. We had two that were unable to make it today. JC Louder. She was honorable mention all-district, and Haley Aldrente was honorable mention all-district.
Well, we want to honor Tony Berumen for a lot of the work that they've been doing here for our district. SAP came last year, and as you know, they've done lots of things to improve the work that we've done with them. So Tony applied for a grant through the No Kids Hungry grant and received an $18,000 funding to be able to help with the things that are there. So Tony, I'm going to hand this to you, and I want to say thank you on behalf of the district for all of the work that y'all are doing and the No Kids Hungry Award, and I didn't know if you wanted to say little words for that.
Just want to say, you know, this is to help the kids nourish and buy equipment that we need to help with the children for the summer feeding and all other programs that we have, National School Lunch Program and so forth. So this helps out with all that.
So again, on behalf of the district, Tony, we want to thank you for the work that you're doing, and again, we appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Jimmy Fikes, the CTE teacher at the high school in the field of business, and what I teach is business computing, all of the BIM 1 and BIM 2 courses this year. We're really excited about the year we just finished in 2020 with all of the problems that we had with COVID absences and disruption in our schedules. We're really excited because we finished the 2020 year, and that means from January through December, with 3 state champions in the Microsoft Office competition. Microsoft only has state winners for Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. And in May of last year, we had Jenna Cepeda, who has since graduated, so she's not with us today. But Jenna won the Texas State Championship in Microsoft Word 2019 and has been invited to the state competition in Orlando coming up this June in 2021. We also have today Phoenix Mitchell, who has won. So Phoenix, come on in. Phoenix won the state championship with Microsoft PowerPoint 2016. And we have Giovanni Dominguez, and he has achieved the state championship in Excel 2019. And the way that a student wins the state championship is they take the same test as everybody else on the planet Earth, and they have to score a perfect score of 1,000, and they have to do it in less time than everybody else on the planet Earth, or in this case, in the state of Texas. When they go to Orlando in June, they'll be competing with about 200 other students who have been invited to come, and they will be competing with all of the state champions from all of the states that participate in this program. But they'll be competing against about 200 students, and they are the best of the best in the nation. And beyond that, if they win at the state competition, then they'll be invited to go to the international competition, and I don't know where that's going to be held this year. It all depends on COVID.
I think everybody is getting really good at reading students' eyes because you could see them smile from behind the masks. All of the students that received their awards. And just some commentary, our volleyball team did exceptionally well this year, and we're proud of them. Our football team did exceptionally well, and I was visiting with Coach Haddock, and twice, not once, did we lose our starting quarterback, not to injury, but COVID exposure, not just the day of the game, which would have given us some time to prepare, but like 2 hours before the game, or before the bus took off out of town. So we lost our quarterback a couple of occasions like that, and so the backup hadn't had but the bus ride to prepare. We also lost wide receivers that way, and it was a challenging season, but I have to tell you, the strangest occasion was we thought Coach was exposed to COVID, and he was getting ready to go out of town. I think they were taking off to Wichita Falls. And so at 8 o'clock in the morning, we're holding the bus. He's at the clinic. He's trying to get the results. He's waiting for the results. And he got his results, made it barely in time to get on the bus, but forgot his pants. But he was wearing pants. As he tells the story, he goes, I forgot my pants. And I looked at him. He's like, no, but I was wearing pants. I mean, my coaching pants. So he borrowed another coach's coaching pants, and he said they were a little big, but he went out and he got on the bus and he made it. So it was the most unusual season. But as you can see through all the awards and recognition, our team is on the right track, and we're real proud of them. Definitely proud of our academic achievements with the two kids. If you're looking for a good accountant, we got a good one that can handle Excel. And we have some presentations coming up, and so if you need to spice up your presentations at the board next time, we got somebody who is a master in PowerPoint. So you know where you can find them. So just real proud of all our students, and again, SFE, thank you for the work that y'all are doing. We know that your funding is dependent on the number of meals that we serve, and when we're shut down and we're not serving meals because of quarantine or because of the number of students that are at home at the beginning of the year, y'all's funding was hit, which means you could deliver a lower quality product or you could do some other things. And so in writing that grant to ensure that there's no lower quality product of food for our kids, we really appreciate that. So a lot of good things happening. So feel really good about 2021. The next presentation we have is about the Education Foundation. Districts our size, and some smaller, and many larger, have education foundations. So what's an education foundation? Well, we have a presenter that wants to talk to the board about what that all entails. The board officers have had an opportunity to preview this presentation, and we're bringing it to the full board on the recommendation of the board officers. So our presenter will be Gary Zacher.
Thank you, Dr. Sanchez, and the school board. Like he mentioned, education foundations are not something that's new. They've been around for a while. As he stated, a lot of bigger schools, 5As, 6As, also 4As as well, have education foundations. What is the definition of an education foundation? That would be to help students coming out of school, going into the university setting or the trade school, things like that, with scholarships, and also helping our teachers with grants in the classroom. So that's one thing I want to talk about. So I also wanted to introduce my other managing partner, Mike Melcher, as well with us. Together we have about 20 years of fundraising experience, and we raised probably over $20 million in the higher education. So one of the things that we want to talk about is how to implement and create an education foundation. Okay, so creating an education foundation requires about 5 different steps you need. So you need to create a nonprofit 501c3. That is something that we would be able to help you with as our LLC, Pay It Forward Consulting. Get everything ready for that, apply for that EIN and the tax exempt status. Secondary is to establish bylaws for the board that would be associated with the Education Foundation. Also drafting different conflict of interest policies, creating strategic management plan, and establishing funding guidelines. This is something that we would help set up and secure for you guys in the coming months going forward. And then after that, we need to start raising funds so that we can then help the students and help our teachers raise funds. And just like Tony doing a grant for $18,000, that is something that the Education Foundation would help with that, because that's not his job. His job is working for SFE, getting our food to our kids and things like that. That is something that the Education Foundation would help provide and get funds for them. Okay, so ways to get funding for the Education Foundation. I've found that there's two specific ways. You have internally, which involves employee giving and student giving. And I talk about employee giving as I mean we need to educate and engage our school board. We need to educate our teachers, our principals, our administration, everybody that is supporting Plainview ISD, letting them know what's the support, anything that's going on with the Education Foundation. We want to get the buy-in from the employees, letting them know so that we can get the word out there externally as well. Externally, we're talking about alumni. I know this past year in 2020, COVID hit, right? We had an all-school reunion thing that was supposed to happen that got canceled. It's supposed to be happening in 2021. This is a way that we can push the information to them, letting them know that there's a way to give back and maybe be the class of 1970 scholarship to help those students or help teachers, things like that. That's a way you get the word out. Same with foundations. There's foundations that help support education and scholarships going to the students and for grants as well, just like Tony as well for SFE in the cafeteria. Okay, and then we want to talk about the community corporate businesses. You talk about the businesses in here, they have the buy-in as well because they're paying on the property taxes, yes, but they're gonna get the buy-in from us to help support those students going forward, because guess what? The students and the teachers here are what pays those restaurants, things like that, those corporate businesses get going forward. So we want to make sure they get the buy-in, get the help on that. We also talk about our individual community donors, just individuals that are in there that want to help the community. I'm talking about maybe people that are retired that are wanting to help support Plainview itself as a community. That's one thing that we want to make sure of. I will tell you, I'm not from here. I'm from Corpus Christi, so about 250,000 people. But I will tell you, Plainview kind of sucked me in. I went to Wayland, and then I took a 4-year break and came back. So I've been in Plainview for about 16 years now, and I'm telling you, we're not going anywhere. I have 2 kids in school here, and my wife's already told me we can't move again anytime soon. So this is our home. So I will tell you, I bleed blue and gold for Wayland, but I also bleed red and blue for Plainview and the Bulldogs as well. Okay, so what we want to talk about is we want to talk about defining and communicate the goals for funding. So we want to make sure that everybody that's on board for the Education Foundation knows what we're doing, how we are communicating that to the public, because it's not just about me, it's about getting the word out from everybody else on the school board to the administration, letting other individuals know what the Education Foundation is about and how it's going to help and support our students and our teachers going forward. And we want to make sure that there's clear, concise communicating of all those goals and things like that. We want to leverage our current resources. We passed the bond in 2019 or 2018, right, Dr. Sanchez? We have people coming in to help build a brand new Hillcrest, brand new buildings that we are supplying funds to them. We want to make sure that they give back to us. We say pay it forward, give back. That's what we want to make sure. We leverage those current vendors that we have right now and work with them to make sure that they know that we want support from them too, okay? And then we also want to develop a marketing strategic plan. I'm talking about long-term funding. I'm talking about short-term funding, and I'm talking about events, things like that we can plan when COVID actually comes back to somewhat of normalcy and we don't have to worry about having, actually I feel like there's like more people in this room than like most events that Wayland has in anyway, but we can, but having events to where we have people that are not have to be 6 feet apart from everybody, things like that, that would be in our marketing strategic plan. Making sure that we talk about the planned giving, we talk about those annual gifts, things like that from the corporate side. We want to make sure that everything is developed in there and everybody knows, so that guess what, we go to that back to that top, we define and communicate what's going on in that strategic plan. And then finally, we want to engage you guys. We want to engage the board. We want to engage anybody that has any say in this throughout the whole process, so they know what's going on. And as I said, you're able to go out and talk and let them know what's going on and how that's supporting Plainview ISD. Okay? So the key steps to funding, there's 4 key steps to funding, all right? So one is educate. What are we, this is an education foundation, but Plainview ISD, what do we talk about our students? We're educating our students, right, to become the leaders of tomorrow. This is what we need to do, is educate everybody about what's going on. And I'm talking about in the realms of the principals, the administration, the school board, anybody, letting them know what needs to be done in order for the support of the Education Foundation. Okay, then when you talk about visibility involvement, I know you talk about marketing, you talk about it costs money, you have to spend money to make money, right? Some people say that, but we talk about we want to get visible. We want to make sure that people know that there's an Education Foundation. I'm talking about go to the restaurants, put signage in the restaurants, talking about those businesses, letting them know that, so people are seeing there's something going on with Plainview ISD and the Education Foundation. Same with involvement. I'm talking about civic organizations, anywhere that we can get in front of people and talk about how the Education Foundation is going to support the students and the teachers going forward. We want to make sure we are out in public talking. I'm talking about if you're just at a mixer or a meet and greet or a business after hours kind of thing, anywhere that we can get in front of somebody and talk to them and say, hey, have you heard about the Plainview Education Foundation? And then start that conversation and start letting them know what it's about, what it's supporting, things like that. Okay. Then also I want to talk about working together. We saw the video about all those awards that the sports and all that stuff had done, things like that. We need to work together with our athletics. We need to work together with our PTOs for our elementary schools, things like that. We need to all work together so we get that buy-in. And as I talked before, we want to define and communicate. We want to make sure that we're all communicating on that same page. So we want to make sure that nobody's saying something different than somebody else. Okay? And then finally, we want to engage. We want to engage everybody that we talk to, let them know what's going on and how the support is there to help with the Education Foundation. Okay, so I wanted to bring Mike in as well, so he can kind of talk a little bit more about the nuts and bolts, and then if you guys have any questions, we are still here to ask for questions.
Thank you, Dr. Sanchez, for letting us be here this evening. What Gary and I are talking about is really kind of a 4-phase project. First of all would be to do all the legal work, get the foundation set up, dot all the i's, cross all the t's, get all that done, and then to procure the board for the foundation. And we've talked a little bit about having representation from this board, plus maybe a board of 9 people, 3 from your group now, and then 6 external board members. And so, and we want a diverse group from town, and what we would do is present a list of possible potential board members and clear that through Dr. Sanchez. Then our job will be to approach those people and bring them on board, get their commitment, and then get approval from y'all to complete the board. Then we're going to establish a committee, a fundraising committee, and our suggestion would be to have a representative from every campus, so that every campus is involved, and try to find the right person, the people who really are passionate about what we do. Because I'm telling you, let me compliment you this. Those ladies that came up here and talked, I wished I had a whole busload of those ladies in a business to put them in, because they're passionate about what they do. You know? So my compliments to you, Dr. Sanchez, and the board, and all the Plainview ISD people. But we'll get a fundraising committee, and then that's when we start putting a marketing plan and all that together to try to start raising some money. Then we will have to, we're talking about an 18-month calendar window. We want to bring on an executive director for you guys to run the foundation, and then we'll get out of the way. But we won't do that until all the pieces of the puzzle are together, and we've trained people and worked with them, and we have a marketing plan going forward. So that's kind of what we're talking about, what we see, our connection to you.
The process, if the board is interested in pursuing this, would be for us to engage, to do a consultant agreement. And at the point in time, that's all formalized, then the work would begin. And once it came together, the 501c status, all of the legal paperwork is put together, then the Education Foundation becomes a separate entity. It is a separate entity from the district. The only thing the district does is provide for the opportunity through a consulting agreement for the groundwork to begin. And we would work with Ann Manning, our general counsel, on policy updates to talk about our role, their role, separation of roles between the district and the Education Foundation. Again, we are, I believe Shallow Water operates an Education Foundation, so it's a district smaller than us. And of course, Lubbock is a district larger. They operate one as well. And so it is something that is an opportunity. It's not a voting item, but if you are interested, please let me know. And then I'll get with Rebecca and we'll begin pursuing what we need to do, Doris and Art. There's a process that we would have to go through as well.
Y'all have any questions for us that we can answer or address?
I have a couple. I mean, they kind of tie together, but I mean, have y'all worked with a district similar to our size before?
No, Tyler, we have not. We have just formed our deal. Gary had an opportunity to leave Wayland to run a foundation, an education foundation downstate. And when he passed that opportunity, because they didn't want to leave Plainview, his wheels started turning. And he said, you know, there's schools out there that need this. That, you know, teachers are, some of your elementary teachers, I think, are tired of sending chocolate candy bars with their kids home so that teachers can fund some of the programs and things that they need in the classroom. So, you know, this is the right way to do it for the school district, to have additional funds that will provide, like Gary said, scholarships at some point. That's going to take a while, because you're going to have an endowment, you know, built up so that you can fund some scholarships. But especially starting out with teacher grants, you'll have a committee. They'll look at these grants that are, you know, submitted by your teachers, blind grants, and that they can have for their classroom, for projects they have, for special events, things like that. And that, you need that. All the schools need it, because it's all about funding.
So the grants then could start pretty quickly with your help with those kinds of things. When
Yeah,
you
we, you know, once we start raising some money, getting some money in, then y'all can determine, the board would determine when they would start awarding some grants, and we'll set up a grant committee. Again, my suggestion, my daughter-in-law is with the Canyon ISD, and she's she's a rep from one of her campus on the committee. So they asked all the teachers for grants, and again, they're blind grants. They have a committee that reviews those, and then they award those each year for the teachers to help them in their classrooms. So starting now, we can do that here in a year or so, once we start getting some money in. The scholarship part's going to depend on, you know, how well we do, and so that you can set up an endowment to fund those scholarships. So.
I have a question. Is there an amount that you have to reach before you start using that for grant?
No, ma'am. There's not. That would be up to the board.
And like you said, with the scholarship for students, basically building an endowment so that we just issue the interest off that endowment for those scholarships. That's essentially what, like say with Wayland, our endowed scholarships are about $25,000, and so that awards about $1,500 a year off that endowment. So that would be, we just need to start building that up. But the grants itself, that's something that we could award, like once we start getting funds in as well. So,
You know, and a lot of it, Gary works in our area, he works with annual funds, small giving. My job at Wayland is to work with the state planning and the state gifts and larger donor gifts and stuff, and that's where you build your endowment. Is once you know, you've got a couple that, you know, that lived here and maybe they had, all their kids went to school, they're gone, everybody's doing well, you know, a trust set up, you know, those are the type of things that we would help you with and train your executive director to do that, because you've got to have some major gifts to do scholarships to build it in. You can't do it off of cookie sales and, you know, candy. It's not gonna happen.
So your consulting fees for what you do would be kind of based on what you bring in, I'm assuming?
No, our consulting fee will be a fixed fee for y'all for an 18-month period. And then, you know, by that time, like I said, we hopefully will have y'all up and running and going and on your own. Neither one of us are going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. I guess I'll die right here in good old Plainview, Texas. And we want you, trust me, we want you to succeed more than anything in the world, because I'm going to retire next year from Wayland, and this is going to be another business that we can do, and there's other school districts around that we want to do this with also. So we're very interested in investing in your success, trust me.
Any other questions, board?
Dr. Sanchez, I guess.
Yes, sir.
This is to you. These consultant agreement, I guess that would fall under, and I'm just trying to, I want to
Sure.
be optimistic about this.
Sure.
Because you mentioned 18 months, let's say 12 months down the road, a year from now, we do get into this, and it ain't working out. Let's go ahead and let's start selling the candy again. Let's go out there and, you know,
Yes, sir.
like Gary, you know, I mean, can we do stuff like that? I mean, is there gonna be okay, we can cut off, we can part ways or whatever?
It'll all be how we write the contract. And so, you know, it's very similar to what we're doing with the bond work. Everything is what's within the contract and is a matter of contract negotiation. And that's something that's not uncommon in contractual language in terms of termination clauses, you know, advance notice at some point in time, an amount to terminate an agreement. Those are different things that definitely can be part of the contractual language. And I'm sure they'll have a draft contract. That'll be something that we would look at with purchasing as well as with general counsel to make sure that it's in line with other contracts. You know, our general counsel out of Lubbock, they do a lot of school district legal work, and they've navigated a lot of these agreements within the Lubbock area. And then they're a group that has representation all over the state of Texas, so they have expertise in this type of contractual agreement. I will say, and unlike you, I'll be optimistic. I've been in here in Texas, the last two districts I was in Texas, Hector and Tyler had education foundations, and they were very successful, and they did a lot of good, a lot of teacher recognition, a lot of staff recognition, and a lot of scholarships, but it did take some time to build them. And at some point, somebody had to stomp their foot into the thorny uncertainty to get it launched. And y'all are all asking good questions, and of course, there is a lot of research to do and working with general counsel, but this is a conversation that we wanted to bring to the board and public as a consideration. And at the point in time, it comes time for the contract, depending on the amount, it'll be something that'll be before you anyway.
So in the time that it's growing, I mean, I think it's a great thing as well, but a lot of our schools have different fundraisers that they do and their parents are familiar with and that help them. Would they still be able then to do those kinds of things?
Yes, the thing about that, what we would suggest and what we would advise you to do is to have that coordinated. So the left hand knows what the right hand's doing and all. And that needs to be run through the foundation. I experienced the same thing when I came to Wayland. We got athletics trying to do this, and they're hitting Happy State Bank for this, and then right behind them's the business department. You know, it was, everybody was trying to do the same thing. So what we need to do is, that's what the foundation does. It'll be an organized fundraising overlay for all the campuses. That's why you need a representative from each campus on the committees. So we want to organize it and do it right. The better we do it, the more success you're going to have.
And one of the other pieces for the board, we do have the audit on the agenda, and I don't know if Doris wants to address some of the information that we've received regarding activity funds and activity accounts and fundraisers and how the state is tightening down on some of that, and how an education foundation takes a whole lot of stress off the finance department when it comes to, can we buy this or can we not buy this? What's the max amount we can use? How do we document it? Out of which fund? How do we justify it? So I don't know, Doris, if you wanted to mention some of what Ike Bailey has been sharing with us regarding activity accounts and how they're tightening up on that.
SB 84, there's going to be more auditing in our activity funds. So we're making sure at the moment that our groups, our student groups, have the documentation to run a student group. And even every account we're having to fine comb. So there's going to be more auditing next year concerning those groups. And so right now we're cleaning up, making sure that everything is there, documented, for next year's audit. So, and they have warned us the past 2 years that they're going to be auditing those activity funds more than ever before, because that's something that the state wants them to do.
So in activity funds, y'all know that's where, we haven't had it, but I've been in other places where cookie money goes missing and things like that, and it gets real stressful for a whole lot of office staff that are just trying to do their other job and take care of the campus and take care of teachers and kids, and at the same time, keep up with giving people the receipts for the chocolate bars and the box of chocolate bars and who got what and who paid and who didn't, and who moved out of town and took the chocolate bars with them, and how do we document that because it's gone? I've been an elementary principal. That's some real deal stuff there. And you're sitting here trying to make sure kids can read and write, but you're trying to find the dude that took off with the chocolate bars. So, because that box is like $200. So, why do we have SFE? Because we want to educate kids, and that's what we're good at, but they're good at feeding kids. And why do we have First Student? Because we want to educate kids, and they're good at transporting kids. So it's a matter of what's our key function, and our key function is educating kids. So let's focus on our key function and not on functions that aren't our key function, like raising funds and raising money and doing all these other things. They're important, just like transporting kids and feeding kids. They're a function of our reality. But it's tough when you take somebody who went to school to teach math or teach pre-K or to help out in the office. Now all of a sudden they've taken on another challenge. And so it does help to put it all under the same roof, because it is tough when you are a business owner and you get hit up by every club and organization and it's not systemic. Then at that point, people don't even want to give the minimum of what they used to, because you're hitting them up all the time. So it does make sense to look at something systemically. But as both gentlemen mentioned, to set up a board that has PISD board representation, community representation, that is able to set the priorities for the district with representation from campuses and input from the district, so that it's clean, it's clean, it's concise, it's consistent, it's laid out in a timeline. It happens at predictable points, so that as businesses make budgets, they can put it into their budget and it's a predictable amount. And it comes at a point in time that would work and be convenient for the business to give. And the estate planning is a big one. Some of the other districts where I've been, you had people that were prominent, they passed and left land with oil wells on it. And it did really well for the Education Foundation. So that's work that we don't have time to go and do and chase down, but it is something that a professional entity dedicated to that could go and do, or a non-for-profit professional entity could pursue.
But when the time comes, I'd like to volunteer to be on that board. I'm just trying to eliminate buying 20 Bulldog cards every 2 hours. Use them, so. No, I'd like to help out though.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, well, gentlemen, I'll visit with the board individually, and then we'll talk about our next steps. But thank you so much for the presentation. That happens in my house too. I buy 2 or 3, Mary Ann buys 2 or 3, and it happens. Then the neighbor knocks on the door, and I'm like, all right. So, stack of them. Okay. We have our district annual report, so Robin Salazar will come up and present that. And last year, if you'll remember, we didn't have STAR, so Robin really stressed out in putting this together.
This was a difficult one, and it's going to be really long, so get comfortable. No, I'm just kidding.
I am here to report to you about the district annual report. Remember, this is from 2019-20, and some of the data within the report is lagging as well. But as Dr. Sanchez said, all of the academic data will be the exact same as the year before because we do not have data from last year since we did not take STAR. You should have the district annual report in your board book. It is a little over 400 pages, so we did not make paper copies for you, but you do have that uploaded in a PDF. If you want it, Tyler, do you want a paper copy?
No, ma'am, I'm good.
So just to remind you, there are 6 sections in the district annual report. They are listed here. Each one of those does have a title page in the PDF to separate that for you. The largest part of that report is the TAPER, Texas Academic Performance Report. We go over this with you each year. It just describes all of the academic performance. Again, this is last year's, year before last data. It's 2018-19 data because we do not have STAR from 19-20. You can see that it is the largest part of the report, pages 3 through pages 262. I will just draw your attention quickly to the fact that the rating that is usually on the cover page does say not rated, declared state of disaster. It's across the state. Every school received that rating. We did meet requirement in special education determination status, Mrs. Tyree. And then the ASVAB and the distinction designations are as they always are. Those did not change. And then there is a TAPER glossary in both English and Spanish available that explains all of the legalistic terms that are involved in the report. The PEMS Financial Standard Report, it is from 2018-19. Ms. Strapa has reported that to you before. It's just, again, we have to put that in the report, even though you've already seen the information. That is pages 314 through 327. It does cover district and campus reports. The district accreditation status is on page 329. We are accredited, good thing. Section 4, campus performance objectives. You guys approve the campus improvement plans every year. So you've seen these. These are campus objectives. Those are included on pages 331 through 403. The report on violent and criminal incidents. Dr. Garcia put this together. We added a little bit of information on PBIS and some of the other strategies. This is the first year that we have reported on the Plainview Police Department, so that was added in. That is more, a little bit more updated information than some of the other portions of the report. This is pages 405 through 406. And then we have the student performance in post-secondary institutions. This is about 2017-18 graduates and where they stand in enrollment in post-secondary institutions from the fall of 2018, the spring of 2019, and the summer of 2019. That report is put together by the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board that works with colleges and universities. Okay, that's the gist of the report, the 400 pages for you. That's a summary. This will be placed on the district website within 2 weeks of this meeting. We will also have, the full report will be, we will also have the TAPER placed separately on the website within 2 weeks. So, short and sweet, 400 pages for your reading pleasure.
We'll have Tyler read it.
Okay.
He can give us a rundown.
The important phrase from Ms. Salazar was on that first page that said declared state of disaster. It wasn't just us that got that rating. It would have been bad if we were the only ones that got that rating. So everyone else got it too. We just wanted to be real clear on that point. So thank you. Thank you, Robin. Now this year, our data is report only. However, there will be information that will be presented that we'll review next year when that data comes out. So there will be a STAR examination and all students will be required to take it that otherwise would. And it will be information that the state will use to set baselines for growth for next year. So it is information that the state will consider. And a lot of their metrics will be looking at how much education was lost. So, not wanting to be behind in that, the first semester we didn't bring data to the board because we were just trying to have school. We were trying to get kids in, trying to get it to be safe, trying to get teachers comfortable, trying to level classes. I mean, trying to do the mask thing and the sanitization thing and the hand sanitizer thing and all of that. So we spent the whole first semester doing a lot of work there. Now, teachers still taught, and they still provided a quality education for students. So at midpoint, we began really looking at our data because we have the second semester, knowing that they are going to take the assessments, and next year, these kids are going to go to the next grade, and we need to be sure that we know what they know and what they don't so that we can intervene in a timely manner. And so what I've asked is for elementary and secondary teaching and learning, as well as campus leaders, to talk to you a little bit about the data and what the data are telling us and kind of where we are now. And then what each campus is doing, about 3 to 5 minutes, with their kids that came back, as well as the ones that have been with us the entire year. However, those kids that have been with us the entire year did miss March, April, and May of last year. So if you started with us in August, you're still 3 months behind. So with that, Ms. Garrett and Ms. Pardo, y'all have the floor. We'll start with elementary.
Good evening, board members. It's so good to see y'all in person. It's good to see everyone. I'm just going to speak a little bit. Mrs. Garrett will be presenting the data. What I want to tell you is the data you'll be looking at today will be data that'll be district data and then also just a cumulative average of the CBAs that were given. Mrs. Garrett will also review some of the things that the teaching and learning department, some of the things they're doing to support teachers and campuses instructionally. Principals will come up here, like Dr. Sanchez said, and talk to you about their intervention plans and what they're doing to address the gaps. What you'll see in the data, you'll be surprised, pleasantly surprised, that we had areas of growth in spite of the instructional challenges that COVID has brought forth. You'll also see areas that, the gaps are evident. And as we look at the data, we can say, well, this teacher was out on quarantine, 6 weeks or however long people were gone. But you do see the impact, but we also had celebrations to look at, and we're proud of the work that we're doing. We're not getting a letter grade this year, but learning must continue. So with that, I'll hand it over to Mrs. Garrett, and then principals will come up and present their plan. It'll be very short, and then they'll be available for questions. Thank you.
All right, good evening. We are going to start with first grade and work our way through fifth grade science. So the way the table is set up is we have on the green section, that will be the 2019 STAR, which was referred to by Mrs. Salazar earlier on. The blue then is the cumulative average of tests taken from this point. You will see the 2019-20 versus the 2020-21 data in each of the columns. So then below that, it is ranked in approaches, meets, and masters. And then along with that is a grade. So looking down the columns for first grade math, again, COVID did come in and take those 3 weeks of instruction from us. So to say that first grade is doing well would be an understatement. They're doing very well in first grade math as a district overall. While we do have some slight decreases, we are still hanging in at very high B's and A's overall. So you can go ahead and scroll through that and see that we are, first grade is hanging in there. So we're doing very well. Second grade math, they too have taken units 1 through 5 up to this point. So I do have to tell you that 2019 to 2020, 2021, when I averaged the scores, I pulled in the exact same units for each year. So we are speaking the same test in this data. So units 1 through 5, still averaging fairly well in second grade math. Of course, you saw the scores from first grade. They sent them very well prepared for second grade. So second grade now is sustaining pretty much. We do have some areas of need, and we are addressing those through intervention. All right, you can scroll through that, and let's look at second grade reading. Second grade reading as a whole, I do want to highlight because you can look at the district and see in 2019-20 versus 2021, and we have made gains. And so what do I attribute this to? I do attribute this to lots of hard work by the teachers first and foremost, and of course the hard work of the students. But this is also a grade level that we have done a lot of district planning, lots of collaboration, lots of communication across grade level, across campus. And so this is a new TEKS. So you're looking at 2020, so this is extremely exciting. You're looking at 2020 with old TEKS versus 2020-21 with us teaching the new TEKS. And so there is a gain. There has been a huge shift in thinking just TEKS from TEKS. And so this is very encouraging to me because you can look down the way and see where College Hill is growing, Edgemere has grown, dropped slightly, but still in the ballpark range. Highland has grown, Hillcrest has grown, La Mesa, and has Thunderbird. So overall, a huge highlight for second grade reading. This also could be attributed to the new guided reading libraries that were purchased. The new IRA kits that we really have worked hard last year to really streamline that reading so that when we did do district planning, we were all teaching from the same source. And I believe that this has proven to be a helpful thing. Okay, so this is a grade level where we do feel like we're going to have to do some extra intervention, not to say that the teachers in this grade level are working extremely hard, and we will get there. But we do know that this is our point of concern, and we will work diligently to make that happen. All right, going on down to third grade math, I believe. I'm sorry, keep going on to third grade reading. This too, we will continue to work hard in this area as well. Moving on to fourth grade math. This is a huge point of, I believe is a celebration point because they did again miss those 3 months of instruction. But fourth grade math is really doing well and communicating across district, which is great. All right, so keep on. The next one is fourth grade reading. While, again, huge, I wouldn't say a huge growth, but it is a growth. We went from 2019-20 at an average of 21 versus this year at a 22. So definitely growth across district or hanging in there from year to year. So kudos to even fourth grade reading. Okay, fourth grade writing, these are their scores. This is a very tight-knit group, they work so well together. They're constantly in communication. So kudos to these teachers for just a lot of collaboration. Moving on to fifth grade, I believe is next. Fifth grade math, again, just a team that works really well together, really rallies together to push the envelope of instruction, and it shows across the board each and every year that they do well and the students really succeed and to move into sixth grade. Moving on to fifth grade reading. Okay, so I have to really, really, really shout out and applaud this grade level. This is a huge celebration. We have grown from 2019-20 to 2021 from a 53 to a 56. I mean, look at College Hill's growth, 41 to a 59. So just overall, again, same situation. District planning, really feel like has rallied the group of teachers to move, and just that collective efficacy that has, I feel like, has really made a big difference. Fifth grade science is our next one. Same situation. They're just a strong group of teachers. And again, this is, while it may be a slight setback, we have to keep in mind that COVID did take that into account. We have teachers on quarantine, kids on quarantine, in and out. So for that sake, I feel like we're in good shape. Any questions that I can answer?
So, and we do acknowledge, I mean, the whole point of putting the information up there is to point out the areas where we know we're going to have to focus and where we have students that missed a lot because they were out a lot. And third and fourth grade, we know we have work to do there. And so the data points us in that direction. And at this time, we'll go ahead and, if y'all don't have any questions, we can ask the campus leaders to come up and talk a little bit about what they're doing and the areas that they know are opportunities.
Do you want to see Lori's on video first?
I forgot to mention, Lori Glenn is out today. She had a minor procedure, and so she did a screencastify, so you'll see her on video.
Okay.
Good evening, Dr. Sanchez and Plainview ISD School Board. Thank you so much for allowing me this opportunity to talk a little bit about College Hill and our current situation with online and what we're doing to help students intervene, those that have been here all year and those that have returned to campus. Currently, as of today, we have 10 students that are on the online platform, and those range from 1 in a couple of grades. The most we have in some of our grades are just 2. So we're pretty equally distributed throughout the grade level. Also at this time, we have 10 quarantined, so our numbers are pretty low at College Hill, and we're very, very thankful for that. All of the kids that have transitioned back in the last couple of weeks are doing very well. Our counselor checks on them not daily, weekly, and to make sure the transition is well. We also had Miss Biggs transition back to face-to-face, and we removed students from 2 of our classrooms to join her classroom, and she checks on those students as well, and they're all transitioning just wonderfully, so we're very excited about that. As far as our students that have been on quarantine, I've done some data, and I've been tracking how many students per classroom have been on quarantine, just to get a percentage of kids that have been on quarantine per teacher. I've also been tracking our teachers that have been out on quarantine and how many days of instruction we've had to use a substitute in their place. We've also had several teachers that have had other illnesses that have taken them out of the classroom for 5 or plus days, and then some other situations, again, that have taken teachers away. We've had to use subs in their classroom for over a 5-day period. So our highest classroom percentage of quarantine is 67%, and then we have it all the way down to 22% of kiddos in certain classrooms have been quarantined. So we have a wide range. Our data does show on some occasions when we take our CBAs that the quarantine is hurting our student data and that we are having to intervene because kids are missing instructional days, or if we have teachers out, they're not getting that instruction that we want them to have with their teacher. No one can teach like the teacher, so we miss them when they're not here. So again, we track that, we're watching that, we watch the data, and when we see there's low spots, we are definitely making plans for intervention. Our campus at the beginning of the year had to, we discussed intervention, and they had to let me know what their intervention plans were going to be on a broad basis. We all have win time, and we all use Friday for some things to intervene on, but we've gotten very granular about our win time, and we are designing very exact plans how we're going to use our win time, what groups we're going to use, what teachers we're going to use, and all of that is being housed in a Google form or a Google folder, excuse me, and each teacher and grade level has their intervention plan there. We also house our LLL plan there, and so that we can go to that intervention folder, and it's very fluid. They can add tabs for the next date when they change groups, and again, that just helps us keep track our intervention and who we're helping throughout this time. But we feel like we're hitting the groups, kids that have been here, kids that have been quarantined, kids that have gaps from COVID. I'm very excited to run our data for our LLI to see how many gains we've made through LLI. I've already heard some very impressive numbers. On the flip side, we do have some kids that haven't grown at all, so that really tells us we need to work on the RTI process and just dig a little deeper and get granular with those kiddos. So again, we are working really hard to do that, and we look at our data regularly. I'm a big fan of data, and any assessment we have, we dig down and we look at the students and we make our groups off that. We use the district disaggregation sheet that we have. We're just looking at students all the time and making plans. So if you have any questions or would like to see any of these documents or talk a little bit more about what we're doing, please don't hesitate to call. We're always growing in this area and trying to think outside of the box of new ways that we can intervene and things that we can do to help our scholars grow. So thank you for your time. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam President and fellow board members. At Highland, we currently actually have 10 students who remain 10 students who remain online. 23 students returned to us in January. They'd spent the full fall semester online, and so we're really monitoring them closely, and currently 6 students are quarantined as well. So for those students who we have both had in person for the full school year, and then also for those students who we have just now newly received in January, we really are focusing, number one, just because we are amidst the pandemic, on their social emotional needs, making sure that everyone is transitioning okay, checking in on them when teachers see a concern. If there is an extended family illness, we're making sure to try to meet those needs first. And then, of course, academically, we make sure that they are very closely monitored, and we are looking at their progress in some interventions, one of those being LLI, which that was the resource that you all invested in. Thank you very much, because we are making great strides with our students, and like Lori stated as well, we also see lots of progress from that intervention. And so we are currently in the middle of assessing their reading levels for the middle of the school year, and so we're going to be turning around some of those groups and hopefully graduating some of them from those interventions, and then also plugging in the 57% of the students who returned in January who are below grade level, so giving them an opportunity to benefit from the staff members that roll out the intervention services. We also have a WIN lab available for those students who are quarantined. So during quarantine, a student is asked to complete a paper packet of work. If they return to us and that packet is not complete, or the student needs to be retaught any of the content, twice a week, it's run by our C19 support from about 8:30 to 11:15 on Wednesdays and Friday mornings. Our C19 support will just it's kind of come and go. So based off of communication with each grade level, they will bring in students who might have just returned from quarantine and catch them up on any of their lessons, reteach content, or help administer any CBAs or other assessments that need to be given. So that's really the way that we are addressing the intervention plan at Highland.
Good evening. Before I started with my presentation, I just wanted to just take a second and thank y'all, Dr. Sanchez, school board, for providing support to Edgemere while I've been out. It was great. Thank you. There's several in this room that came over and helped us as well. Mrs. Wren did a great job, and I'll always be thankful to everything she did. Thank you for that extra support, and we just really appreciate it. So I want to share this data, or not really the data, but our plan. We specifically took Monday staff development time and took a look at the data. We looked at an attendance report where we broke it down. You can see throughout the 6 weeks what days kids have missed. Each teacher has that in their hands, and they can see, some of these teachers were out. They can go back and see that data. And then we had a big discussion, subject by subject, math, science, writing, social studies. We talked about those TEKS and those high leverage standards, and what do they have to go to the next grade to make you successful. For example, in math, they just over and over again kept talking about they have to understand problem solving and the the multi-step problem process, and they've got to start seeing that young as it comes up. So we had some conversations about that. And then we broke it down specifically into the different subject areas. We talked about, for example, for reading, when students come back, we're taking a look at their DRA. We're getting them progress monitored. I'll just throw this in real quick about LLI. Our third grade did theirs early, got data to us. We have over 150 kids in LLI because we really had a need and we really have plugged that system. And that's more than a third of our campus. I mean, that's a lot of kids. But I want to say already in third grade we had a 15% growth. So we're really excited. And keeping in mind that's a new team with a teacher who's taught for 3 years, one that's taught for 2 years, and one that's taught for 1 year with this infusion of LLI. So it's pretty exciting considering we're doing that in the middle of a pandemic. We're looking at their CBAs and reading. We're spiraling those into station and centers. I didn't mention, but when we target that DRA, we are pushing some of these kids that are coming in from online. So I'm not looking over there. My neck is still pretty stiff, so I'm not looking either way. I'm a little
It's an intimidating
tonight,
side
sorry.
over here.
Sorry.
It's all about Tyler. You're going to pay her back.
Time to go way back. I was student council sponsor. He was our president. He was awesome. Anyway, and when Ms. Harrell was up here, I used to teach physics and AP physics, so that brought all that back. Anyway, long story short, but we're plugging these kids as they come in. In math, we're using a spiral review on every grade, particularly Lone Star for the older grades, but we have one for every grade. Some of the bigger math assessments, like where we gave a Unit 1 through Unit 5, we're re-giving that to those kids as they come back. But we're not going back and giving individual ones. It's not worth it at this point. It's better to spiral. We took the virtual times that the 4th and 5th grade teachers have, and we've rolled those into tutorial times. 1st grade and 5th grade have volunteered to do after-school tutorials. We're covering their dismissal so that they can get that extra 30 minutes in with kids starting in February. We have a computer lab at 7:30 in the morning and at 3:30 in the afternoon. We've taken every advantage of those CNIT teams that you provided us, and we're so grateful for those CNIT teams. But we're using the CNIT teams with our ISS to do we've left it up to the teachers, either plugging them into certain time periods to work with kids or pulling those kids out and working with them, similar to their WIN. The only other thing I was going to add is that one of the things that was a big push for us last year was the students tracking their data. And so as these kids are coming back, they have a tracking sheet where they're scoring and putting their CBAs, their DRAs, and they're looking at that data to try to get them intrinsically motivated to want to do better. So anyway, thank you again. We really appreciate everything y'all done for us.
Good evening. I too want to thank each one of you for the texts, the calls, but more importantly, the prayers that you had for us during the time that we were out recuperating, and just from the bottom of my heart, I thank each one of you. Very grateful to be here tonight for that. Very excited that she has a tech shirt on.
Excited. This is just for work.
Okay.
It's no OU.
Yes, go Tech. Okay, so at the end of November, we had 28 kids still that were virtual. So of those 28 kids, we had 6 come back, and we had 2 who actually withdrew, and so we still have 20 that are on line right now. The kids that did come back are adjusting well. Teachers are working with them individually in small groups, and they're actually working with them during after school and in the mornings with them. For within Tier 1, we had a great training with Ms. Garrett and her coaches, which we were very thankful for that. For her coach, all of our coaches were there, and we had a great plan that we put forward before us, and we're already seeing that this process is already being implemented in our classroom. Teachers are scaffolding already the interventions within their their Tier 1 capacity. Tier 2 and Tier 3, we currently have 23 groups that are being pulled K through 5th grade. And so that's 3 to 4 students, and we're using the LLI kits too. So they're being pulled every single day except for Fridays. And they're also, and I apologize for short of breath, it's a little bit of nervousness and a little bit of COVID, so between the two. So we are actually adjusting those groups every 6 weeks, and we're looking at DRAs, CBAs, and of course teacher observations so that we can change those groups every 6 weeks. Also, we're really grateful for the language acquisition team. Mrs. Wallace is on our campus every week, and she's working with all of our bilingual and ESL teachers going into those classrooms and helping and supporting those teachers, so we're very grateful for them. They've also provided us with extra tutors for our EL students, and since Thunderbird has a large percentage of ELs, it's been very, very beneficial for us. We also have, we're very fortunate to have the ACE program. So we have interventions in the morning, and we already have interventions in the afternoon. So every day that's been going on since August. So we're using every minute of the day to be able to reach our kids. Any questions? Okay.
I, just like Ms. Garcia here, I'm very nervous. This is the first time I've been up here in front of you all, so I feel like I need to introduce myself. I'm Susie Garcia, and I feel privileged to be serving Hillcrest. We've gone through a lot of changes this year. However, the staff has remained very dedicated, and they've been working hard from the moment they get there till the moment they leave. I feel like they don't even take a conference. They just continue to work. At this time, we have 17 students that are virtual learners. We have 18 who have been quarantined. When our online students do return, it's a transitional process. We have included our C19s, which, again, I want to thank you all for that. They have been a vital component to our intervention process. The teachers monitor and they provide additional support when needed through small groups, and a lot of them provide one-on-one for those students. Our quarantine students, we utilize our C19s. They check in with our attendance clerk every morning to service the students that are returning daily, because as you know, it's just a rotating cycle. They're coming in daily, and we have different students coming in, different grade levels. So our C19s are dedicated to different grade levels, so we're actually serving 2 different grade levels as they're returning every day. The teachers, of course, also service those students. They evaluate them, they monitor them, they work with them, they small groups, one-on-one, just whatever needs to take place. I also want to thank Katrina and her team. They've come over to Hillcrest yesterday, and we've implemented a new intervention plan where we're going to be extending our math and reading classes to 90 minutes versus the 45 minutes that they've originally had. And that's to incorporate the tutoring and the intervention that our students need during that time. So a lot of the low TEKs that we have, those teachers will be focused on what their students need. They'll be spiraling those TEKs throughout the day, and within the 2 weeks, they'll be monitoring them again and making sure that these students are mastering the TEKs that they're low in. Any questions? Thank you.
And remember, C19 are the long-term subs at the beginning of the year that y'all approved.
So you're still getting to use those?
Yes.
We're still there.
We kept them all for all year.
Good evening, board. My name is Jennifer Huey, and I'm the principal at La Mesa. And I just want to say ditto. Done. I will give a few specifics at La Mesa, but basically what they've all said is very similar to our plan as well. I also want to say thank you for the purchase of the LLI kits and the Fontes and Pinnell guided reading. As a former instructional coach, going into classrooms and having to model how to do the guided reading lesson plans was quite extensive, and now that is a much easier process because it's laid out, it's scripted for them, so it's pretty easy. So for our new teachers, they can't go wrong. It's really laid out very nicely for them. So I really appreciate you approving that this past year. We currently have 22 students that are still online. Our number is one of the higher numbers. We have 7 of those 22 who are medically fragile students. And so that's been the reason why several of them haven't come back, is just because of their health. So that makes 15 gen ed that would be the rest of that. We currently have 15 students who are on quarantine. As far as our intervention plan goes, we have our ISS teacher, our C19, every single person that we have on our campus is pushing in some form or fashion. And I really want to give it up to our La Mesa staff, because they, every single one of them, they are just doing an amazing job of saying, I've got a free minute, this is how I'm going to pull this student, this is what I'm going to do. Mrs. Huey, what can I do to intervene here? And so we have, on Wednesday, yesterday, during our PLC, we went so granular and found out we are going to not just double dip, but triple dip or quadruple dip some of these kids, not just our students who are coming back from online, but all of our students, because all of our students have gaps. And so we are just trying to make sure that we're filling all of those in. Another just real quick story about the staff. On my first day at La Mesa back in September, the second grade team came to me and they said, Jennifer, we've figured out a way to intervene with our students, but we need more. They need more. And so we sat down and we came up with a new plan for their phonics of how to do different groupings for that too. So they have just been relentless in their efforts. So that is basically our intervention.
I don't know if y'all have any tough questions for them. I think they did a pretty thorough job, but,
Questions?
all right. Okay, Ms. Straley will present the secondary information, and then we'll have the secondary principals see if they're as well prepared as the elementary principals.
Okay, good evening. Similar to what Katrina said, it's important to recognize in English we have new English standards, new English curriculum. So whenever we put up any kind of data this year moving forward, these are new standards. In addition to, we also know that we had several months of students outside of school, as well as months this fall where kids were online and coming back face to face. So a few things that are a little bit different with secondary data format-wise before we get started. We went ahead and we pulled out math and reading. And if you'll notice on the left-hand side, if you've done any kind of reading and paying attention to education jargon, there is a very significant amount of information out there about COVID slide. And I can get a little nerdy on the data piece, but I really felt like for math and reading, I wanted to know where was that COVID slide with our kids. So the left-hand column in green, we went ahead and we did a baseline data for the kids the previous year prior to COVID. So this average that you see in the left-hand column is where our kids were before they left school. The middle column is the first true CBA when they came back, same kids. So as you look across the row, this is kid to kid. So you can truly see where the kids were when they left and where were they on the second CBA. So this would have been second 6 weeks, which I love that perspective because we needed to know, have we closed the gap and can now move forward? Or are we still adjusting to the gaps that kids had prior to instruction, even with current instruction happening, that we're still having to go back and fill in those missing pieces? So 6th grade, you can see across, we are super excited here at Coronado. They have really done an amazing job. We've had a teacher come up from elementary, and she's done a beautiful job transitioning to middle school. And you can see by CBA 3, they have closed that COVID gap, and they are well on their way to being incredibly successful this year. If you kind of look down to 8th grade, and that one's a little bit hidden down in there, same thing. We have the approaches number is already, they've closed that gap. We're coming back up. Masters is showing some good gain as well. So we're excited. We've got pockets. We know with writing's a struggle. And we know the students did not do much writing at all when they were at home. And so this is something we're having to work on. The last time students did a writing test was in 4th grade. So it's been multiple years, and I will tell you, this is the last year we will have a 4th grade and a 7th grade writing test. That writing individual test is going away. So, goods and bads, but that's kind of where we're at with that. So if you'll go ahead and scroll up. So here's Estacado reading for 6th, 7th, and 8th, exact same format. You can kind of see that we have up there. I'll draw your attention to 7th grade. You can see where we were prior to COVID. By CBA 3, we've already closed that gap. The approaches number is looking pretty solid. The meets number, we've had some good gain there, kid to kid again. So some highlights to look at. Definitely some things that we can still work on, but some successes we can take a move forward from. Okay? And then your writing data is on the bottom as well. Estacado's got a very veteran team sitting in 7th grade, and I do think that does help whenever we have teachers that have good command of the content coming in. Coronado has a pretty young staff still in their 7th grade. So they're learning content and learning new TEKS as well. Okay, if you'll go ahead. So this next piece, we're going to look at math, same format. You can kind of see where we're at. 7th grade math here at Coronado, they have really kind of put up some good numbers this year. 8th grade math, we have a new teacher there at Coronado, and a little teacher that last year joined us in January. So she has 1 year under her belt with a few months out for COVID. So we are super excited with those 8th grade math scores. They are really working hard and doing great things for kids. If you want to go ahead. And then here is our 6 through 8 math for Estacado that you're looking at right now. Again, their 6th grade team, they've got a couple of teachers who've been there for a while now. They work really hard, and you can tell those ladies are already rocking it. They've made huge gains, even from CBA 2 to CBA 3. If you'll look at those approaches, meets, and masters numbers, those ladies put their hearts into it, and you can definitely see that. Same situation at 8th grade. We have some veteran teachers over there that really know their content well. They work hard. They do good things for kids. So we've got some strong teachers, and we're working. We're working to get all the kids back up where they need to be. Okay. The next piece we're going to look at is going to be 8th grade science. Now, just a reminder to this group, the 8th grade science test is a cumulative test. It tests 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade standards, all on this 1 grade level. So the 8 is kind of, it's not a true picture of what those kiddos actually do. So you can notice the top row is Coronado, and we've got a very solid team there at Coronado with 1 veteran teacher and 1 teacher that's a new teacher. He's in his 2nd year for us. They're working hard. They're doing good things for kids. You can compare where they were on the 2019 STAR test. We didn't do baseline data with these kids because you really can't with a 6, 7, 8 since they don't take a test in 6th and 7th. They save it for 8th grade. But you can see for CBA 3, they're already above where the kids were performing on a STAR test in the past. At Estacado, we have a veteran teacher who's moved up to 8th grade as well as a 1st year teacher, so they look kind of similar. Again, they're doing really good things. They're making good progress with kids. We have high hopes for where these kiddos will be in the future moving into biology, because that'll be the next science test they take. Okay, and then the last 2 middle school views we'll look at will be 8th grade social studies. This test is specific to 8th grade. It's American history. At Coronado, we have a couple of returning teachers to that team. It's the same story at Estacado. They're all returning staff. We have been using some new curriculum. We started it last year for social studies that the teachers seem to really be embracing. It's spiraled. It does a lot of really good review. So we're happy about the curriculum. We're moving in the right direction. And I think we'll start to see that needle move a little bit better in 8th grade social studies. Okay, and now we're on to high school. Now, high school, I do want to give you a little bit of background as well. So accountability does not count for the campus. However, the kids taking these end-of-course exams, it counts for the kid. So if you'll remember, for a student to graduate, they take 5 end-of-course tests. And the campus does have to keep track of passing on those individual exams. So that's kind of a unique situation high schools are having to work with right now, because that kid needs to pass this test this spring to graduate when they're a senior. It does count for them. So when we look at this data up here, what we went ahead and provided for you is where were we the last time the campus took a STAR test, and then we've also put consecutive data for where they have historically been on this assessment in this grade level. So you can kind of see our biology team is what we have up here first. We're a little bit behind where we've been in the past, but remember these kiddos did not take an 8th grade STAR test last year because of COVID, and it had been 3 years before that that they took a science test in 5th grade. So that's tough if it's been that long since you've seen science in a tested material. Science is hands-on labs, and that's a big transition from concrete to abstract when you're dealing with the science world. English is up next, so you're going to see English 1 and 2 data. Now this is brand new, fresh off the press, you could say. The teachers gave this assessment last week, and so the data you're seeing for 2021 is as close as we can get for where kids really are in this moment. And I didn't mention earlier, this data is online kids and face-to-face kids. Every kid who's receiving curriculum and instruction from Plainview ISD, their numbers are here. So if a kid just came back, or they're online, or they're in quarantine online, their data is showing up for you. Real-time information for teachers. So you can kind of see for English 1 and English 2, we're pretty much holding steady to where we've been in the past, which I think is a big accomplishment, that we have not had a significant backward slide. The teachers, you heard 2 of them tonight, they're very passionate. They care about kids. They're doing what it takes to get kids caught back up. And I think that's evident in these scores and very close to where we were on STAR already. So that's encouraging. I think we're almost done. U.S. history, we have up here. Now, U.S. history is a junior level test. So this one's a little further down the road for our high school students. But you will see up here, we are a little bit behind where we have been on our CBA test in the past. But when you compare to where we've been with STAR, pretty comparable. And we still have several months. U.S. history is kind of like that 8th grade American history test. That's a lot of dates. It's a lot of time to cover. And we just have to have that time with kiddos to get those pieces filled back in. And then the last piece, you got to end on a big celebration, right? We all know that the Algebra 1 team always does an amazing job. You heard from 2 of the math teachers tonight as well, very passionate teachers. They do a great job for our students here at Plainview. So we have algebra at the high school. You can see PHS across the top. We also offer Algebra 1 at the 8th grade level at Coronado and Estacado. And so those 8th grade teachers I talked about a while ago in math that are doing great things in the 8th grade math curriculum, they are also doing great things in the Algebra 1 curriculum. So you can see our scores for approaches, meets, and masters, our overall letter grades. These are the highest in the district, just across the board. We have a very, very solid math department, curriculum and instruction, and great teaching in the classroom. So that is our data in terms of where we are in secondary. Questions?
All right, we can start with the middle school campuses, and so I see we have Mr. Kellum as well as Ms. Long, so whoever pulled the short straw can go first.
That's okay. Good evening, everybody. It's good to see you. Let's talk a little bit about online kids. First of all, thank you for requiring all those kids to come back on campus. At Coronado, we have 11 kids that remain online. Teachers have been super excited to get kids back to school. They want their hands on them. They want to see them work. They want to interact with them. So we're thrilled that y'all made that for us, and we're glad to see them back on campus. Overall, by all teacher accounts, when we've talked in PLCs, our planning periods, teachers have said students are doing well, trying to make up assignments. Kids are glad to be back at school too. We do have some concerns. So, kids are a little anxious that have been gone for so long. Understandably so. So we've got counselors working with them, teachers working with them, Our APs work with those kids a lot when we're having a little bit of anxiety. So we do have some of those issues, and understandably so, but we're fighting that as well. But for the most part, kids are, we had kids run back in. I can see one now that he's been gone a long time, and he ran in with his band instrument the first day he got to come back to school. He's like, "Can I go put it up?" And we were like, "Yeah, go ahead." And they're super excited to be there. We have gaps. We know that. Our intervention plan, well, we went kid by kid looking at who has failed multiple 6 weeks, 6 weeks, have they failed the semester? We took sheets out on all those kids, wrote their grades down, and we will be changing schedules come Monday on a lot of those kids to get them in the right intervention class. We need some kids that need some credit recovery. We need some kids that just need math and reading intervention. And so we've separated those all out. We purchased iReady, which I think we're going to love. I think Ms. Garcia uses that on her campus. It is a comprehensive kind of curriculum intervention program for us that we have loaded and ready to go this week. So we're going to be utilizing those in some math and reading enrichments, as well as some certified teachers to fill in some gaps. We have loaded our computer lab with some credit recovery. I say loaded, it's a small number of kids, 5 or 6 kids, not more than 10. And pulled some teachers. Our band directors are going to run a little credit recovery for us for a free period that they have. We're going to use iReady and iMath in there. The kids are right now working on a diagnostic test that puts kids on their level. So if I've got a kid in 7th grade that might be 2 grades below, he may show up at 5th grade lessons. The teachers can then go in, pull reports, pull intervention groups, look through that data and see what kids need specifically, and pull lessons for them in class. But that program also makes a pathway for students based on where they are. And so those teachers that aren't a certified math teacher or a certified reading teacher are going to help facilitate my path through those computer programs, make sure kids are on it, they're taking their time, and we're working through curriculum to close some gaps. Coronado is a little bit different. Dean's going to talk to you about Estacado. I'm on the phone a lot with Richie back and forth. We talk about a lot of things on a daily basis. Our campus is a little bit different because I have a much younger staff. So Robin presented the data to you. We know where we're strong, we know where we're weak. But if you show me a great teacher, I'll show you kids that succeed. So we have intervention plans going for, new teachers as well. I have Robin's coaches, I have Mary's coaches, running all over my building all of the time, trying to support teachers. So y'all have to approve those positions, so we want to say thank you for all the coaches. Josie, Sarah, and I can't possibly get to all the places that we need, but we've got coaches, they're calling them, they're texting them, they're emailing them to get in and helping intervene with classroom management, content, run a station for me. So we're super thankful for that because we need to build capacity in some really young teachers. All of our new teachers have had a coaching cycle. And so that helps us a lot too, but we're not intervening only with kids, we're intervening with teachers to try to get better and close gaps there as well. So that's what we're doing at Coronado. Do y'all have any questions for me this evening? That's a lot of information I just spewed, I know, but we'll take any questions that you have. But thank you for, your commitment to help our kids, get back into school, and 2, to provide some staff members that help support not only teachers but kids as well.
I want to thank y'all as well for everything that y'all have done for us this year, whether it's Dr. Sanchez coming in and teaching classes for us, or
That was fun.
getting the kids back to school. It's been great. At this point, we have 18 students on the online academy. Out of those 18, 16 are being successful. 2 of them are they have doctor's notes that they need to be online because of medical reasons. For our students that have returned, what we've seen is the ones that were doing good before they were online, they're able to pick it back up with regular interventions, win time, teachers pulling them in during lunch. And I want to just give a shout out to our teachers. They do a great job. You all know that they've gone above and beyond, working after hours, late nights, and pulling kids in during their lunch, even though they're not required to do that. They're supposed to have a duty-free lunch. They just do great work, and I can't speak more highly of them. The students that were struggling though before, that we saw struggled before they the whole COVID stuff, and they were online. And now they're back. They're still struggling, so that's where we're putting a lot of focus in. We have tutorials set up for after school 2 days a week, 45 minutes, and we've had teachers that volunteered to do that, to work with those students, and they're getting paid extra, and I thank y'all for the funding for that as well. We have about 65 students that we are permanently pulling in during our win time, which is fourth period, and that's an intervention time. What we have is teachers that we luckily, with y'all's help and everything, they had that period set aside so they could work with online students. But now that we don't have that, we have the learning academies. Those teachers have that free time right there, so we're using that time for them to step in and to work with these students that are struggling. And they're using Get More Math, which is a program that we've found lots of success in with our 6th grade math. And they're using that to help with them. And then Read Naturally for our reading that they're struggling in that area. And that's 30 minutes, 4 days a week that they're getting that intervention. And that's our students that have returned and are still struggling. Of course, we're still doing, teachers are calling students in from our intervention time, and we use our data just like we've always had. We look at our CBA data and see where they're missing the mark and pull students in. Our 6th grade reading and math have 72 minutes built into their schedule, so they get to do interventions during that time as well. And of course, with y'all's approval and everything, we'll have summer school where we get to help fill in gaps for the students that are still struggling after all these interventions, and that if they aren't able to prove successful. I want to give a big shout out as well to our counselor. She's done a great job of meeting the students as they come back in, welcoming them back to the school, and showing them their schedule, giving them a tour of the building, going over the PBIS procedures, checking in with them on their social and emotional needs, because of course we have those anxieties when they come back. You know, what's everybody else doing? They've already been here before me. And just walking them through that. We've got a great counseling staff here at PISD, and just want to give a shout out to them. Thank you. If you have any questions.
First of all, again, I want to thank y'all for what y'all did tonight. I know that it was an emotional situation for parents, for teachers, and I recognize that it's an emotional situation for you, the people that have to make the decision on this. I feel like you made the best decision because what we're trying to do, I understand parent concerns, but we are concerned about gaps. And I think these gaps are going to present themselves not just this spring, but they're going to show up. And so the sooner that we can get on this and the sooner that we can get these kids back, the better. When I first addressed the board that day in early November, when we were talking about the problems that we knew we could see just because of grades, I mentioned then the concern that we had for those students that we felt like, at least on paper, grade-wise, we're doing well. Those are great kids. They're overachievers, and they're doing everything a lot of kids would do. But the thing that they don't have is that face-to-face instruction, which is going to create that gap, not through their fault. And so that's why they need that, and we appreciate that. There are 3 things that we were going to address tonight. One is credit gaps. The other is content gaps. And the other item is our EOC teams. It became pretty evident in September that we needed to do something because we were looking forward to August of 2021 and what could be coming our way if we did not get on top of this early. One, we know the 8th grade group is a bubble group, and it's going to be large to begin with, so that's going to strain us to start. And if we did not get these credits recovered, it would create kind of a perfect storm. And so we purchased Apex. We created a lab. We had to wait until the start of January to identify those true failures and qualify those kids that were going to go into that Apex lab. So it was a whirlwind of activity. for our counseling department and administration, but especially our counseling department, who talked to over 200 kids and readjusted their schedule to include an Apex lab. We have an Apex lab 8 periods a day. And so those students are able to get in there. There are 2 facilitators in there that have been trained. It's going very smoothly, and it's just something that's needed. Now, it doesn't address CTE. So we're in hope that we recover a lot of the core credits by the time that we get to the end of this spring semester. The CTE credits are things that we hope a lot of healing will be done with second semester students, and then Dr. Sanchez in the program of summer school will address a lot of those CTE problems that still exist once this semester is over with. So we feel like we're going to continue to recover credits even in the summer and get those kids back on track in that area. Mr. Fitzgerald's going to talk about content gaps briefly.
Good evening, and again, we just wanted to say thank you because your C-19 support that you provided to us is actually the reason we're able to do that Apex Credit Recovery Lab. We're using 2 of those C-19 as our lab facilitators, and the great thing about that is we have almost 200 kids in that class right now and getting their credits, but you're talking about some of them needing 4 credits of their core credits. So you're talking about 600 or 700 credits that have the opportunity to be earned this spring. So it's a great opportunity, and it's only allowed by those C-19 supports that you've given us. I'm going to address a little bit of the content gaps because at the high school we have 2 things. We have our credit gaps because they have that transcript and the ink dries on that, which is a little different than elementary and middle school. But we also have big content gaps, as you heard from the teachers. So those students who are taking credit recovery for the first semester, they're still in their second semester class with their teacher. So the teachers you heard from tonight, they are getting together, and what we're doing is we're looking at our data for our intervention groups, and they're breaking down to find out what do those kids specifically need. And we're going to break them into groups, and the way we address them is within our classroom through stations and also through teacher table, where I may pull 5 or 6 students to my desk. Ms. Cook may pull 5 or 6 students to her desk that are all struggling with the same thing. And if she can just help them with that gap, they're going to move 4 or 5 questions between their benchmark and their star. We did take our English 1 and English 2 benchmarks last week, and then tomorrow we actually have an exciting day planned where we've collaborated with our exceptional learner department, with the teaching and learning department and language acquisition, and their instructional coaches will be planning with our teachers all day, our English teachers, on creating those intervention groups to give those kids exactly what they need. And then the last thing I wanted to share was a celebration that we had because we did take December STAR test, and we had 2 seniors who were in a position where they needed to pass 1 more STAR test in order to qualify for that SB 149 project, where they can basically do a project for 2 of those STAR tests for graduation requirements. If they did not pass that 1 STAR test, that 1 more STAR test, their graduation would be dependent on the spring STAR test, and nobody wants to be put in that position. Last year, we were able to head into the spring with no one in that position, and I'm here to say we have no one in that position again because due to our language acquisition department with Mary Sanchez and providing our coach, and then our teachers working with these students after school, both of those students passed that 1 test that they needed and now are on track to graduate. So we're headed into the spring with 100% of our seniors on track as far as STAR, and then we're getting their credits. And so we're headed into the spring in a good place.
One other thing I wanted to let you guys in on as far as our EOC teams and all of the anxiety and stress and uncertainty that we began the school year. One thing we had our administration did too, well, what's it going to be with STAR this year? I didn't have 1 teacher in a STAR tested subject come up and ask me that. And they were, right from the beginning, we're going to do what we've always done. We're going to keep moving regardless of what the state tells us to do. It's been in CBAs and benchmarks, and their planning has been the same. So our goal right now is to get into these interventions with kids, recover those gaps as quickly as we can. And when our kids take the test this spring, it's going to be every bit real to them. I know that when our kids took English 1 and English 2 benchmarks last week, the reports that I was getting from teachers and we were also seeing in the classroom is kids were working. They were not giving up. They were working as hard as they could. So that is an encouraging thing to know about them, and I think we're moving forward real well this spring. Thank you. Y'all have any questions? Thank you very much.
Good evening. I have I got some information written down, and I wrote it down, so I won't go into pastor preacher mode. So forgive me if I keep looking at the paper, but I just want to get the information across and nothing extra. At ASH, our intervention plan is to keep doing what we do. ASH is already built on an intervention philosophy. So when COVID hit, this is what we do every day. We go where no man has gone before. We not just work with students who have gaps in their learning, we work with students who have canyons in their learning, and it's like we have a shovel. This is what we've been operating on for years. And so we're going to keep doing what we do. We're going to do it step by step. We're going to spoon feed, and we're going to keep teaching through rapport. And that's what we continue to operate by. We do not have any online students. Even if we did, the format will not work for us because we just started with semester A again, and everybody else is doing semester B. But we do not currently have any online, but we have 2 that are quarantined. Yesterday, 11 took the English 2 benchmark. 40% met their approach level. 44% are within 10% of reaching that meets level. Now, with that is great for us because for the past 6 years, we've been like 19, 20, wishing we can get to 30. Now, what's also great about this is we had a new teacher who came to ASH at the beginning of the school year from 7th grade, who did not have experience working at the high school level. So just last Friday, she was trained how to score the writing. Again, the strength at ASH is through rapport. If we can build that rapport, we can get the students. And she has been very successful there. We had one exceptional ed student who last year couldn't even write properly on a lined paper. She wrote a full page on the essay, and I think she scored a 2. And with some tweaks, she'll be at a 3. So the teacher is reaching the students. Today, the teacher met and collaborated with the teaching and learning department. The way she's going to go about attacking from the information that was given from the data, going to be broken down into small groups and targeted instruction for each group. They're going to start with the lowest teaks and reteach through small groups and stations. We'll use the star release questions. With writing, we're going to be graphic organizer and use a star rubric for scoring. Each student have a targeted plan using the rubric to guide instruction. We're going to targeting specific test-taking strategies to help students dissect the test questions. Benchmark essays look better than they have in recent years. The teacher is confident that we will see growth in writing by targeting each component of essay and providing feedback and conferencing with students individually to help with strength and challenges in the writing piece. We have one student that needs to take the algebra test this year, which is very unique because in August he was a 7th grader. Right now he's a sophomore. So it's very, ASH has a lot of curveballs. But through working one-on-one with the student, we believe he can make it. and actually pass the test. We have about 20 that's going to take the U.S. history. I think we have about 3 or 4 right now that's designated to take the biology. Again, if we can get our students in the school and keep them in the school, we can get them there. The philosophy is, Ash will work if you'll work. That's the best thing. But again, with this, I think the teachers, they will have more time now because at Ash, we have 9-week semesters for the non-tested subjects. So they already have the rest of this year planned out. They're just going to take what they use from August to October and then from October to December. They already have that planned out. They just have to tweak it. So they'll be able to focus more in on the EOCs. So that is what we're planning to do at ASH. Any questions?
Board, we had the training from the state required training on the board's role in evaluating district student performance, as well as intervention and setting growth targets. I hope you see that what a trainer comes in and talks about should be done, our campus leaders, our classroom leaders, as well as our district instructional support leaders are living out a philosophy that the state has set every day to ensure that, like the sign in the back of the room says, that we set the standard in education, and we do it by respecting every one of those pieces that are the core beliefs and core commitments, and the first one is student achievement. And we also are second to staff. So we appreciate y'all's time and attention. I know it's a lot of stuff and it's been a long evening, but we do appreciate y'all's time and attention and y'all's support. The next item we have, we're getting to business items. The business item, the first one we have is consider and possible action to join Qualis Group, a cooperative purchasing program. And we have Ms. Dunlap here to answer any tough questions you may have. She's always out trying to save us money, is my understanding. And the big question always is, what do we get from this group, and does it cost us anything? And so, yes, ma'am.
Actually, this one is managed through the Education Service Center Region 10.
That way everybody can hear your beautiful voice.
This interlocal agreement is managed by the Education Service Center in Region 10 in Richardson. The purpose of it, it has about 100 vendors on it. We're looking at one for HVAC controls just to consider. We're not committing, we're just looking at it. And if we have a contract in place that it's already been advertised and awarded, it's been bid and awarded on a scale that they've determined, then we can use that contract if we need it in our maintenance department. I noticed on it, it had lots of, from supplies that you would use on an instruction basis to technology to a lot for maintenance. And so I'm not necessarily ready to pull a trigger on a specific contract, but it puts us in a position that if we do want to use this, we're able to do so. It doesn't cost anything. Right now, the only one that cost us anything is the West Texas Educational Purchasing Co-op by Lubbock ISD, but the rest of these don't cost anything for us to join. Any questions?
Board, any questions? I
Well,
just
that-
want to let you know, we value your opinion. We talk about you a lot when you're not here, so.
Most
All
of it
good
is
works.
good.
Mostly good, right.
So comforting.
So that, I'd like to recommend action to join the Qualis Group, a cooperative purchasing program for goods and services, authorizing the district to enter into an interlocal agreement managed by Region 10, Educational Service Center Region 10.
Board, do I hear a motion?
I so move.
We have a motion by Ms. Bass. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second by Mr. Soto. Am I correct?
Yeah, put it there.
All in
That's what
favor?
he's going by, that's the AKA.
It's been a long day.
Yes, I shall remember.
All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries.
And I would like to also mention, when Mr. Kellum talked about substitute teaching, I was substitute teaching, Jeff was substitute teaching, and I believe Rebecca and Doris have also substitute taught. And we went in and gave teachers time to plan, so we were the subs. By the time it was all said and done, Jeff and I needed Nancy to rescue us from some students, but other than that, it was great. So I think Rhonda had to debrief with us a little bit for some crisis intervention. But the next item we have is our annual audit, and it's something we're very proud of. And so we're doing this via Zoom, and I will turn it over to Ms. Chapa to introduce our presenter for Mike Bailey.
Our presenter right now is Kevin Randolph, and he is from I. Bailey, and he'll be presenting our 1920 fiscal year audit. Okay?
Okay, Kevin, you are up. You're muted. Unmute yourself. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen. Does it look okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kevin Randolph, and I'm with I. Bailey, and I'm here to present the district's August 31st, 2020 financial statements. And I'm going to go through my presentation, and I'll be glad to answer any questions after I finish. With that, I'm going to get started. First thing I want to go over is the auditor's opinion, which is the purpose of getting an audit is for us to give our opinion on the financial statements. I'd like to point out that management of the district is responsible for those financial statements, and the auditor is responsible for expressing an opinion on those financial statements. And this year, like last year, we issued an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. That's a clean opinion. That's the opinion you want to get. It means that we found that the district's financial statements were consistent with generally accepted accounting principles. And we had no issues or findings to report this year. So a good, clean audit. And I'm going to go through the numbers briefly now. This is a statement of net position for 2020 and 2019. This is a balance sheet showing assets and liabilities, and this presents it in a comprehensive manner, including long-term assets such as land, buildings, and equipment, and long-term liabilities such as bonds payable and the district's net pension liability. As you can see, assets increased from $72.2 million to $156.9 million. It's a big increase. The district issued about $66 million in bonds during the year, and that's going to drive up both your liabilities for the bonds payable and then the cash and investments for the bonds once they were sold. I'm going to skip over to the balance sheet of the governmental funds. Now this will be the district's general fund and then all its other funds. This is a listing of assets and liabilities. And again, this is going to look really different year to year due to the bonds being issued. Total assets increased from $33.3 million to $118.5 million. And as you can see, cash went from 30.7 to 113.7 million. And again, that's due to the bonds that were issued. Receivables are amounts due for property taxes and then amounts due from the various grants that the district participates in. And those increased from 2.4 to just under 4.7 million. Liabilities increased from 4.4 million to 10.1 million. Those are primarily made up of accounts payable, which is amounts due to vendors a year in, and then wages that haven't been paid, and the district had a amount due back to the state for foundation overpayments. Fund balance is the net of all that. Fund balance increased from 28.9 million to 108.3 million. And again, that's different year to year due to the bonds being issued. There's a significant amount of restricted fund balance in the capital projects fund for the bonds that are issued. Now I'm going to go over fund balance a little more. As you can see, again, went from just under 29 to 108 million. It's made up of several categories. Restricted fund balance is $76.5 million. $75 million of that is the capital projects fund balance, which was funded by the bonds that were sold. that fund balance is restricted as it can only be used for future construction projects as outlined in the bond documents. Assigned fund balance went from 1.7 to 19.2 million. That is fund balance the district has set aside at its own discretion for future construction and for future capital equipment purchases. And so the district has just deemed that amount to be used for future construction projects, equipment. If you back that out, that leaves you unassigned fund balance. Unassigned fund balance decreased from 25.8 million to 12.5 million. And that's a direct result of the district choosing to assign quite a bit of its fund balance for future construction projects. Unassigned fund balance, this is one thing we like to look at. It represents approximately 3.1 months of general fund expenditures, meaning if the general fund brought in no revenue, you'd have about 3 months worth of fund balance to pay bills. So it's something we look at on all of our schools. That's a pretty consistent what we typically see. Going to go over revenues briefly. Revenues increased from 56.7 million to 62.1 million. Revenues at a school district are broken up in 3 categories. There's local, state, and federal. Local is primarily going to be property taxes, investment income, and then other miscellaneous income. But the biggest chunk of that's going to be property taxes. That decreased from 17.2 to about $16.5 million. State revenue is primarily foundation revenue, which is money paid by the state, and it's based mostly on attendance. And that increased from 31 million to 37.3 million. Pretty consistent with what we're seeing in most of our schools due to changes enacted by House Bill 3. Federal program revenues were pretty flat. They were 8.5 and then just under 8.4 this year. And that's just the various federal grants the district participates in, the 3 big ones being Title I, special education, and child nutrition. Expenditures increased from 53.6 to 61.8. And some of that's going to be construction from the new bonds, and then expenditures from the new bonds, capital outlay. Construction expenditures increased from 28.5 to 32 million, and that's pretty consistent again with salaries being a little higher due to House Bill 3. Instruction accounts for 53.9% of expenditures this year, excluding capital outlay, and last year was 54.2. So pretty consistent that instruction is just right about 54% of expenditures. It's really all I have for the numbers. There's a few other things we do that I need to go over. We do look at the district's internal controls over its financial reporting, and we just look to see that the controls and processes are consistent with what we think they should be. And this year we had no findings, no internal control weaknesses, and we noted no instances of non-compliance. So in our internal control work, everything looked clean. We also do what's called the single audit. Since the district receives and spends more than $750,000 in federal revenue, that requires a separate audit over compliance with federal grants. Now, we don't look at every federal grant. We have a risk-based approach, and we pick a sample of federal grants each year. This year, we tested special education and the COVID-19 or CARES or ESSER funding. And when we do that, we look at the compliance requirements. When you get money from the federal government grants, there's things you can do and things you can't do. And you also have to have internal controls over compliance. So we look at both actual compliance and the internal controls over compliance. And consistent with everything else, we had no issues or findings with our single audit. That's really all I had on my end, unless anyone has questions. I would like to commend Doris and everyone else in the business office. They do a really good job of helping us. This was an unusual year. We did the audit entirely remote, whereas in the past we've come out, but due to the pandemic, we did everything remote this year. And Doris and her team did a really, really good job of getting us everything in a timely manner. And we finished the audit about as quickly as we did last year, if not a little quicker. So she did a really good job, and I just wanted to commend her for her work. And that being said, that's all I have on my end. There is one page that I need tonight, and I think Doris has that. It's a board certification page. So should the board approve the audit, I would need that filled out, emailed back to me. But other than that, that is all I have, and I'd be glad to take any questions now.
Board, any questions? No questions.
All right, with that, I would like to recommend on behalf of the administration, consideration and approval of the 2019-20 financial audit
Board, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Adam. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Mr. James. Do I, all in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0.
Great job to the finance department. Good job,
I'm
guys.
sorry, I didn't hear that last part, Brent.
So for all the principals that get upset with Doris and Rebecca and company, that's their STAR test, and so they do a good job. The next item I have is just the second part of item 3, and you can turn the lights on because I can't see anymore because I'm old. Thank you.
It is better.
The second part is consideration and approval to prohibit the use of any mask or face covering that resembles a bandana pattern or has any known or suspected affiliation with gang or extremist groups as determined by campus leadership in concert with the superintendent or his designees. And that's just to make sure we get ahead of the fashion industry before they start putting things on masks that we don't want kids to be wearing. And so instead of trying to catch it after the fact, we just put it in writing before they start getting those things out, or people try to get bold and show up with things that could be a disruption to the educational process. So with that, I'd like to make that recommendation on behalf of the administration.
Board, is there any questions on this? No questions. Do I hear a motion?
I so move.
We have a motion by Ms. Bass. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
We have a second by Ms. Ray. All in favor, raise your right hand.
All right,
Motion carries.
Thank you. We'll communicate both of those out in writing in English and Spanish tonight via our virtual platforms as well as our campuses. We'll ask that our campuses also communicate this information out as well. And we'll give them a day. So Monday we'll start changing out masks and whatnot, so. The next item we have is consideration of Texas Education Agency waiver of educational appraisal requirements for the 2020-21 due to COVID-19 pandemic. So, in a nutshell, you saw teachers from the high school who are very representative of teachers from the middle school and the elementary school come and speak to you. They take their job very seriously and they do a good job. And they work hard, and if there's one thing that we can take off their stress list, and that's all of the paperwork and everything that goes into the evaluation process, as well as something we could take off the principal's stress list of having to go into a really awesome teacher's class and spend the amount of time documenting how awesome that teacher is and bringing that teacher in to tell him or her how awesome they are when they have other things that we're really trying to close the gap on. I think they do a good job in affirming our great teachers with discretion and empowerment, and the teachers that need help. If you'll read the rest of the item, I'll cover the last section, that it is the, in the place of the complete appraisal evaluation instrument for the 2020-21 employment year is up to the discretion of the district as to which aspects of the appraisal and or evaluation process to use for intervention, growth plans, or adverse employment action. So, very much in line with the district's theory of action. If you're doing a good job, you are in the empowerment this year for us to skip past evaluation. If you're somebody who needs help, then the language allows us to get in there and still help you. Our first option is always to improve you. Our last option is always to remove you. We'd rather improve you and keep you than remove you. And so with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have on the item.
Board? Yeah.
Okay, with that, I'd like to recommend consideration and approval of the Texas Education Agency waiver of educational appraisal requirements for the 2020-21 school year due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Board, do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the TA waiver of educator appraisal requirements for 2020-2021 due to COVID-19.
We have a motion by Mr. James. Do I hear a second? We have a second by Ms. Ray. All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries.
I'll let you know that takes a little stress off some people. I had one principal threaten to kiss me on the mouth if this item passed. I told him that that would not be necessary. I have witnesses to that, and so, all right. Let's see.
Devin, be prepared, Devin. Picture.
Don't take a picture of anything. All right, let's see, the next item we have is consideration and approval of a Leader Workforce Commission grant of $7,533 funded by the Plainview, Hale County EDC to Plainview ISD for current technical education. Ms. Straley does a good job in working with LEDA and the Workforce Commission to apply for grants. In the past, we've used the funding for the culinary kitchen, for the welding program, and this year it's for the CNA program. And if there were ever a profession that was in need of people to enter into it, that's one. And as we shared last year, CNA certifications in a lot of cases are the precursor to nursing schools considering you for entry into their program. So with that, unless there are questions, I would like to recommend approval of accepting the LEDA Workforce Commission grant of $7,533 funded by the Plainview, Hale County EDC to Plainview ISD for current technical education.
Board, do I hear a motion? Any questions first? Sorry, got ahead of myself. No questions? Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve the Workforce Commission grant of $7,533.
We have a motion by Ms. Bass. Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a second by Ms. Salzar. All in favor, raise your right hand. 7-0, motion carries.
As you saw in the audit presentation, we have bond money, and it's been funded. And so now it's time to use it for the purpose that the taxpayers intended. We appreciate the board's approval of the contract with Tyner for Coronado and Estacado. I just signed that on behalf of the district through your authority, which means we can get to work. So that's very exciting. Next we have is item 6, consider proposed evaluation committee ranking recommendation for the Thunderbird Elementary School bond project. Now, let me step back and explain something briefly, big picture, and Mr. James can fill in any gaps that I miss. So, Thunderbird and College Hill were put out for bid. We budgeted about $22 million for each school. So we put them out for bid, cross our fingers, and hope that it comes in at or below. We had quite a few contractors bid for one, both, one project, the other project, or both projects. And it's very exciting to report that the contractor that I'm going to recommend to you tonight gave us a proposal that was significantly below what we budgeted, almost to the tune of $6 million, which allows us to really enhance some of the add-ons that we would have liked for Coronado and Estacado, as well as these projects in La Mesa, that we didn't know if we had the money for. But timing is everything. And I do have to say that God has blessed us well, because when we went out to ask the voters for the support, they gave it to us. When we went out to invest the money, we got a great interest rate, an interest rate that was better than the market by about 2% and some basis points. When we went out to sell the bonds, they were snatched up and we were funded. When we went out to bid for the schools, they're coming in under what we budgeted. So everything has been a blessing. And timing is everything, and we appreciate working with Park Hill, with Mike and Alan, as they helped us navigate the best timing to put these projects out and all of the work that it took to get to that point. So each of these items will be recommended individually because they have to be, and I'll ask for your vote individually. But we're recommending Lee Lewis Construction, which is a very reputable construction firm. When they say that the building will last 50 years, it does. When they say they'll meet a timeline, they do. And we looked at their record, we looked at projects they've taken on, we looked at the superintendents over each project that they intend to assign, as well as their communication structure, and it's very advantageous. So I don't know, Mr. James, if you wanted to add anything.
No, I would just say that, yeah, I mean, I feel like it was, I mean, I don't want to say splitting hairs, but I feel like the companies that put in were all very close when we came down to the end, but, you know, I think we all agreed on that the support staff that we were gonna get in the way of project managers and superintendents that we were gonna get from Lee Lewis was, you know, something that we were really leaned on to help us make the decision, so I'm just super excited. Very, very, very excited.
Board, any questions? Mr. James?
Or, and both Mike and Alan are here as well, are there any technical questions about the process or the contractors?
No question.
All right, with that, I'm gonna have to start getting my readers out here, go to the eye doctor. It's a long day. Okay, I need to get the big print. Like to recommend, that the board consider the proposal, consideration and approval of the proposal of the evaluation committee ranking recommendation for the Thunderbird Elementary School bond project. And so, I'll recommend that, and, that, of course, would be to, Lee Lewis Construction.
Board, do I hear a motion? We have a motion by Ms. Rivera. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Mr. James. All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0.
Okay. The next one is very similar to what we did the previous time. I'd like to recommend authorization, Superintendent H.T. Sanchez to enter into contract negotiations with the number one ranked proposer for the Thunderbird Elementary School project. Based on the evaluation process, the committee has ranked Lee Lewis Construction's proposal the highest. It is therefore the recommendation of the evaluation committee that Plainview ISD rank Lee Lewis Construction as the number one ranked proposer and authorize H.T. Sanchez Superintendent to negotiate and enter into contract with Lee Lewis Construction.
Any questions on that one, Board? Do I hear a motion?
I so move.
We have a motion by Ms. Bass. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Ms. Ray. All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0.
Okay. Item 8, I'd like to ask the board to consider a recommendation from the proposal evaluation committee, ranking recommendation for the College Hill Elementary School bond project. The committee has ranked Lee Lewis Construction proposal the highest, therefore the committee recommendation is to award the construction project for College Hill Elementary School to Lee Lewis Construction.
Any questions on this, Board?
I'm sorry, I don't know if we moved on forward, but I was looking at the bottom. It says if Lee Lewis is unable to reach this agreement, who's the second ranking do we have?
Western Plains Builders. Western Plains Builders, yes, sir.
And they are literally a couple $100,000 higher. And the difference, again, as Mr. James stated, is the command and control structure that they have in place. It's good, but Lee Lewis is better. And so they would be second place if we couldn't reach an agreement.
Any other questions, Board? No questions. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Tyler. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Ms. Amber. Any, all in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries.
It's a long night, I apologize.
I'm tired and it's hot up here. Sorry.
It is getting toasty up here. I thought it was just me. I was hitting some hot flashes or something. All right, let's see. I think it's spending this much money. I have a hard time buying a car that costs like $25,000, much less a school that costs some millions here. All right. So let's see. The next item, of course, is very similar to the previous. I'd like to recommend that the board authorize Superintendent H.T. Sanchez to enter into contract negotiations with the number one ranked proposer for the College Hill Elementary School project based on the evaluation process. The committee has ranked Lee Lewis Construction's proposal highest. It is therefore recommended that the evaluation committee that Plainview ISD rank Lee Lewis Construction as the number one ranked proposer and authorize H.T. Sanchez Superintendent negotiate and enter into contract with Lee Lewis Construction. Same caveats as below. If, however, the district is unable to reach an agreement with Lee Lewis Construction, the district may cease negotiations and move to negotiations with a second-ranked proposer.
Board, any questions on this one?
So if it came back to, if that didn't work out with Lee Lewis, would we have to come back and revote, or it would go with the Western? That's
It would
part
go
of
Western.
that's part of the proposal.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. As the committee ranked them second, they would automatically be the one that we would go to and offer both projects.
Any other questions? No other questions? Do I hear a motion?
I so moved.
We have a motion by Ms. Rivera. Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Soto. All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0.
The 10th item is something that I had mentioned earlier about the savings. As you can see on the bottom, replace existing south parking lot at Coronado, $47,000. So with some of the savings, we would be able to go ahead and take this additional step at Coronado and take care of the south parking lot. Another one is renovate existing band practice rooms at Coronado for $20,000. And that'll make our band director at the high school very happy. Then the next one, bid alternative 3C, replace existing fire alarm system at Coronado to match the new construction system. So instead of having two systems with two panel boards and trying to figure out how to work them both, it'd just be one new system throughout. You can see the cost is $36,000. Alternative 4 is replace existing aluminum storefront and doors at the main entrance, and that would also be at Coronado. And if you go through there and look at it, different sets of doors, different kinds of handles, different kinds of hardware. And so this would just clean that whole front area up. Bid alternative 1E, provide brick veneer in lieu of modified stucco at portions of the new gym at Estacado. If you'll remember in the renditions, we went a little over half up with brick and then it was stucco. Now brick all the way up. Stucco was pretty good stuff, but the brick just looks better. And so, and you can see that cost is $88,000. And then replace existing fire alarm system at Estacado to match the new construction system. So doing the same thing at Estacado, then at Coronado. So again, you just have one system. And so the total amount is $248,600. And so I'll go back and make the recommendation. I'd like to recommend that the board consider contract amendment to Tyner General Construction for bid alternatives 1E and 3E at Estacado Middle School and bid alternatives 1C, 2C, 3C, and 4C at Coronado Intermediate School.
Board, any questions on these?
This isn't something that Lee Lewis could do as well?
It's something that was in the Tyner contract, so when we put it in the Tyner contract, we put them as alternatives that should we want to execute that part of the agreement, we could. And in good faith, Tyner gave us a cost for what that would be, so it would be something that we would have to do with Tyner.
Because they're doing the Coronado.
Alan, I don't know if you had something you wanted to add.
Any other questions, board? No questions. Do I hear a motion? We have a motion by Mr. James. Do I hear a second? Second. Who said that? Oh, we have a second by Ms. Salazar. All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0.
All right, the last project we're working on is La Mesa, and we have some exciting things that we look forward to presenting in the very near future. Okay, the last item on the agenda is application for approval of CT Innovative courses. The two courses are General Employability Skills and Community Transportation as an innovative course at Plainview High School. And these courses, as you can read in the description, are for our exceptional education students, and it gives them an opportunity to get CTE credit. And the campus is here to answer any questions on it, and if y'all have any questions, but I will make the recommendation on behalf of the district for the two innovative courses.
Board, any questions?
What does community transportation involve? What is that about?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions, board? No questions. Do I hear a motion?
I so move.
We have a motion by Ms. Bass. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Ms. Rivera. All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0.
Okay. Under consent agenda, it's just the minutes, so I'd like to recommend the consensus agenda as presented.
Do I hear a motion?
I so move.
We have a motion by Ms. Rivera. Do I hear a second? We have a second by Ms. Ray. All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries.
All right. The last thing we have under board report information item is, it is Board Appreciation Month, and so that's why you have all the recognition from all the campuses, and so it's an opportunity for them to tell you thank you and give you a whole lot of gifts. Mr. Reagan was so excited that this year he had the opportunity to choose the gift on behalf of the secondary principals. Shopping is his thing. So, but board, thank you for all that you do, and district leadership, administrators, if you'll please join me in giving the board a round of applause. And with that, that concludes the business of the district this evening. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, board. I was told to let you know that there is a gift card on the paper sack stapled to it, so don't throw it away because it is a gift card that's stapled to it. Right, with that being said, let's call this meeting adjourned at 9:21.
Good job, everybody.